Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men. We will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Been in college baseball for a while now, but I've never experienced anything like 12th man.
The other schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
this one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
The epitome of what this team has done, right? Gavin homers, Jace homers, Braden homers, Chris Cortez, 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
So not a big fan of the weather right now. What's up with that? I guess considering last year we didn't get that much rain, it's good to get a welcome to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here on the Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan, our Heisman Trophy voter and columnist extraordinaire. I'm David Nuño. Today is Wednesday, June the 5th, 2024.
Is that crazy?
Already June, yeah?
We're already June. I mean, it seems like the older I get, the faster time goes.
That's 100% true.
Man.
And the older we get, the more tired we get. Well, you don't get tired.
I get tired.
You're an energy drink guy. You're good.
I get tired.
Yep.
Yeah, especially around 8 o'clock at night.
So, betting around the world, I've seen A&M as one or two in several different ones. The most recent updated College World Series odds are in from Bet Online. Are you interested in hearing a little bit about it, OB?
Yeah, sure. I'm interested in A&M baseball, and I'm interested in betting.
Yep. Well, I'll just give you the top four.
Okay.
Number 4, the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, Kentucky.
8-1 odds to win the College World Series. Okay. Their Super Regional is against Oregon State.
All right.
So 2 Oregons are in it. Number 3 on the list is
North Carolina.
Wrong.
Tennessee.
Florida State.
Florida State.
Florida State.
And the wrong ACC team.
Super Regional versus JUCON. College World Series odds 8-1. Okay. Moving down the list. Number 2.
Texas A&M.
Whoop. Yep, that's right. A&M is College World Series 7-2 plus 350. Okay. They're taking on
Oregon. Oregon Ducks.
And then number 1.
Tennessee.
And they're taking on Evansville.
I think probably, I would completely expect Tennessee to win, but I would think that there were people in East Carolina that were going to Evansville.
Right?
Who are they? So thinking about this Oregon series, a couple things for you to think about. 40-18, they can win some games. They already got the 40-win plateau or the 40-win mark. Let's see. They went 19-11 in the Pac-12. They have 2 hitters. Let's see. They have 3 starters that hit over 300. Okay. As a team, they hit 280. Okay. And I'm sure in a moment, Nick will put some of the graphics to compare the two. They have Jacob Welsh, who has the most homers on the team with 18. There we go. There's the breakdown right there. Just for you to understand, A&M's team average 299, and A&M as a team hit 130 home runs and counting, OB, and counting. I don't mean to come off like a, SEC elitist.
Right.
I wonder.
But we are.
I wonder about, I'm not completely dismissing Pac-12 baseball and everything, but I do wonder about the caliber of pitching they've seen to put together the batting average and the home runs that they have, or the caliber of lineups they face to put together such an impressive ERA.
Let me give you a little some things to think about.
Okay.
Last year, A&M's season was ended by a Pac-12 team.
True.
And Braden Montgomery, I'm looking at this number, he has never beat. He's beat them, but he's never won a series against Oregon. Here's a soundbite, and I'll read it out loud, that he said after the regional.
I've not been a part of a team that has beaten Oregon in a series, so I'm excited to get a third chance at it. It will be awesome to face a West Coast team again and see what we have for us, but I like our odds.
That's interesting that he's never won a series over Oregon, but things change from year to year.
They better change.
Like I said, when I look at at Pac-12 baseball, right, and I know historically it's been powerful, but Arizona State's not what it used to be. Apparently USC's not what it used to be. Stanford, best players here. Oregon State's obviously a tremendous program, and Oregon's getting good in everything as they should with all that Nike money behind them. But Arizona is a 1 seed and doesn't get out of its own region, right?
Yep.
And then who else was in it? Cal wasn't good. Stanford wasn't good. Arizona State wasn't good. So I don't mean to dismiss that, because I'm admitting I'm speaking out of ignorance here. How good?
But when you don't watch, you have the numbers to look at and history to look at.
Yeah, I just wonder how when I look at their numbers, I have no doubt about the caliber of competition that the Aggies statistics were compiled against, because 5 of them, even though A&M didn't play Kentucky, 5 of them, or did they? No, they didn't play Kentucky. I had to remind myself about the SEC tournament. 5 of them, I guess 4 of them, almost 5, because LSU dropped a fly ball. Otherwise, they might have been in the tournament. 5 of them were still playing. So again, it's just, I think caliber of competition matters.
And the 5 that are playing, you lost to Tennessee, the only time you played them.
Right.
You lost, LSU's out, so you did. Florida, you lost to Florida.
Two.
And who else is left? Kentucky, you didn't play. Who am I missing?
Georgia.
Which you did beat Georgia. Yeah, you did.
Should have won 3 out of 3 if, they actually had to follow rules.
But Georgia's playing really good ball right now. I know they struggled.
They played good ball all year, right?
Here's another thing to consider, OB. Oregon has reached the College World Series 1 time in 70 years.
Okay.
So that has no bearing on this series at all, but just a little bit of history for you to consider.
Well, for years and years and years, decades, Oregon had a poor athletic program. And I guess sometime in the 90s, they started really, except for track. They were always good in track and field. And then sometime in the 90s, I guess, things started to change. Started with football. They had a quarterback named Reggie Ogburn way back, and that was like the first time they were actually starting to be pretty decent. And then, so I'm not surprised that they're good in everything, because they've invested in it.
How many runs did A&M score against Louisiana? 11?
The last game?
Yeah, 11, was it?
9.
9?
Wasn't it 9-4?
Okay. And then they scored 8 against
Grambling,
and they scored 2 against Texas.
Well, they scored 4.
4 against Texas.
I think, yeah.
So do the math for me real quick.
What?
8 plus 4
is 12.
Plus 9.
Plus 9 is 21. Yeah.
In the 3 games that Oregon played, they scored 10 runs.
Okay.
5 runs in one game, 3 runs in the next. Not that, again, that doesn't have – I'm just saying that offensively, we know what A&M can be. And I would say in the regional, we only saw really a glimpse of what A&M can be.
I think Brauninger said this, and I agreed with him, because why wouldn't I? He knows baseball a lot more than I do. He says in order for Oregon to win, Oregon's going to have to play probably their A-plus game, for 2 or 3 games, and
A&M's going to have to play a C?
Play a B.
A B, okay.
If A&M's, I guess he's trying, if they're both playing at a high level, A&M's just better to win. But, what's the old line? You don't have to be the best team. You just have to be the best team that day. And if A&M goes out and plays to its ability and has the way the pitching's been, their pitching's been pitching at national championship level. And, we're hoping the hitting has shown that it's coming around. You would expect them to win. But, again, we're at to the point now, and we talked about this yesterday, a great offensive performance now may equate to 5 or 6 runs. It's just getting the big hit when you got runners on.
Team ERA for Oregon, who's got a nice pitching staff, 4.62. They've got a starter who went in the series in the regional who threw 135 pitches. Yeah. Kevin Sider.
They have two really good starters, I'm told.
Grayson Grinnell, Kevin Sider.
And what are their ERAs?
I don't have that in front of me.
Because I wonder if those guys are really good, what's the team ERA if you subtracted, that's 4, you said it was something like 4 something?
4.62.
4.62. So if you took out those two guys, I wonder what the team ERA, if it swells over 5.
The A&M team ERA is 3.85. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
and having faced, the big hitting teams like Georgia and Florida and even Tennessee for a game, that's just all my point.
Yeah. So the arrow should be pointing at A&M.
Oh, I think so.
But there's nothing is guaranteed.
Nope.
Nothing is guaranteed. And we've seen it too often. So get it done this weekend. I would prefer 2 games, Saturday, Sunday.
Just get it over with.
And just get an extra day to prepare. Right?
In fact, TexAgs, Richard Zane and Brauninger and whoever else, they should make their arrangements for Omaha today. They should get their. All you got to do is
cancel if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, but just show that confidence. Just go ahead and book that room today.
Yeah, I don't know if I would advertise that they're planning ahead. I would just do it and keep it on the down.
Well, I just think planning ahead is smart.
Yeah, planning ahead is smart, but you don't want to mess with the mojo. You don't want to mess with the baseball gods. Like, what? You're planning? You remember what the Dallas Mavericks did in 2006.
What they did.
And by the way, they had to do this. 2006, they're up, I believe, 2-0 on the Miami Heat.
And
they start planning the
officials
parade.
Started swallowing their
well,
whistles.
the officials ruined that series for sure.
Yeah.
But they started planning the parade. And word got out that they started planning the parade. They have to start planning the parade. You can't do it after.
Right.
But it wasn't good that it got out that they were planning the parade. You got to do it on the down, right? And then
I guess I'm not superstitious that way.
Miami won 4 straight games. Dwayne Wade lived on the free throw line. He was brilliant in that series. But the officials, the refs, made him even better.
Yes, they did. I'm typically not one to blame officials, but I remember that.
That was
ridiculous. What is going on?
It was wrong. And then they got their revenge 5 years later against the same Miami Heat. Well, different players, but Dwayne Wade was a part of that team as well.
Yeah.
So there's our basketball content for the moment. Anyway.
By the way, they start that final tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
The Mavericks and the Celtics.
Yeah. I'm a little worried.
Go Mavericks.
A little worried.
I've been worried every step of the way.
Yeah. Oklahoma City, worried. Minnesota, worried. Boston, worried.
Every team they play, they say it's like this guy. They have the next Jordan on the team. Whether it was Gilgeous-Alexander.
Do you remember I had that whole thing about Anthony Edwards? I made a comment that
somebody else was saying it.
I was just saying he wasn't the face of the NBA. He wasn't a household name, and I kind of clarified what I meant afterwards. But the average fan, sure, if you're an NBA fan, you know Anthony Edwards. But if you're just a rando who only catches up when it comes to NBA finals, like my mom or whomever, then I don't think you think of Anthony Edwards in the same vein as a Steph Curry.
If Anthony Edwards came in here right now,
I would know
him. I wouldn't.
I would.
And I saw him play here against A&M for Georgia. But if he came in right now until somebody, hey, this is Anthony. Oh, hey, Anthony. But until then, I wouldn't know him.
Yeah.
But if Luka Doncic came in here,
we would have given him a hug.
I would know.
We would. That'd be hugs right there. If Kyrie Irving walked in,
I would know.
You would absolutely know.
Yeah.
If James Harden walked in,
well, because that beard.
Yeah.
If James Harden came in, I would say, okay, we're all apparently TexAgs now that he's here. Our product's going to start deteriorating because everything he touches.
Just tell him it's Game 7 and he'll leave. I knew you would like that. And then someone's going to send me a stat. Look what he did in Game 7s. 35 points a game, except the ones that mattered. All right, let's do this. Let's go around the room and say hello to the people. This is Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. We go behind the glass to say hi to the Nick Savage. Nick Savage, how are you, buddy?
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
Hey, that was a happy voice from you. Good morning, buddy.
Yeah, I'm always happy. Yeah, just okay. Looking ahead, we heard from Brawny, or I guess Brawny tasked a few of the interns back here. So shout out to Matthew and Will who found this. But the Oregon starting pitching numbers. They went and broke down throughout the season what that looks like. And, Bronny and Richard have been telling us that's the strength of the Oregon Ducks. And, that, like you mentioned, David, they got a few guys about 3 guys who will probably start the 3 games in whatever order it may be. But, looking at the numbers, they strike out a lot of guys. They limit the walks, can get a little erratic, maybe hit some batters there. But, I wouldn't jump at that ERA and think, oh, man, there's no reason A&M shouldn't get to them, because you got to think there's midweeks factored in there that they're throwing, freshmen or sophomores that might give up a few runs here or there. But, that's definitely going to be the key, is how quickly can you knock out the starters for Oregon.
Well, that's one thing that A&M is really good at, right? And I think we saw it in the regional. As good as the Texas pitcher was, and he could have gone for 120 pitches per Bronny, he had done it before. Just get them deep into the game, and that offense is going to find their way.
Yeah, typically. Plus, again, especially with Prager on the mound, how many runs do you have to score to win?
4?
Maybe 1.
Yeah. He will match that energy on the other side, will he not?
He did against Arkansas.
Anything else, Nick?
No, sir. That's all.
I appreciate you. If you want to be a part of the conversation, I didn't tell you. You probably didn't know what to do. You can call us. You can text us. 979-693-1150 is our phone number. How are you feeling about the Oregon pitching staff against this Texas A&M offense? Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. That's where we find Eric Casares. And at some point during the show, we got to play the Titanic theme song or some sad music, because
don't do it.
Today is Eric's last day as a member of the TexAgs family.
Yeah, that is kind of sad.
Yeah.
He's our
rabbit. They called him into the corner office and they said, buddy, you've been here way too long, all right? No more Costanza. 3 years.
3 years.
3 years, man. He's good for distance.
That is true.
There you go. 3 years went by so quick. Remember being the first year an intern and come back last 2 years. I remember my first time being on Social Center with Tomas, and he was like, I didn't even know I was going to go on. He was like, hey, you're going to read these 2 headlines. Like, good luck. And I remember being so nervous. I probably stuttered a lot, but it's all right. 3 years later, very grateful for the opportunity you guys have given me, and I'm so excited. So.
I remember those days with Tomas and Casares.
ARP.
Yeah. I was thinking more of
Torrey Esparvoa.
I was thinking more of those guys, and then Nuño, and then you'd have Aaron Torres on. It was like the
Latino hour.
It was the Latino hour.
Yeah.
And speaking of Tomas, he's in Boston right now. So he's
trying out for
the Red Sox.
No, he's trying out for I forget what country. What is it? Poland?
What?
He's gonna hate me for not remember. He's trying out for their world baseball team.
Poland.
I don't know if it's Poland.
Well, I was going to say he's in toxic territory because he's going to be there while the Boston fans are getting ready for the NBA Finals. So you said you were nervous, David?
Yeah, but
he's always nervous.
I'm a nervous fan.
He's nervous, Nuño.
Until the game starts, just ask. My soccer team wins every championship ever, and I still get very worried.
Yeah, you've gone from next year Nuño to nervous Nuño.
I am very nervous Nuño.
I like being...
the year after next Nuño.
I like being underdogs in this series. That does make me feel better because a lot of, despite what people say on Twitter, because I know there's a lot of people that just hate Boston and there's a lot of narratives going around that Jason Tatum's like a bum, but he's not. But
Jason Tatum's fantastic.
Yeah, he's awesome. Despite what they say about him, we're the underdogs. We're the betting underdogs. I feel good about it, so that's all you can ask for.
When have they been the betting favorites?
The Celtics?
The Mavericks.
No, I'm saying the Mavericks are the underdogs.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, when have they been the favorites?
Oh, yeah, true. They weren't the favorites in 2011.
Or were they the favorites in the previous series?
Nope.
No, they weren't. I don't think they've.
That's my point.
They were slight favorites.
Were they favorites over Clippers?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They were slight favorites in the Clippers series, and then the Thunder and Wolves, they were underdogs. And now this series, of course, they're underdogs. They're like minus 220, or Celtics are minus 220.
Remind me, how bad was this a 5-game series against the Clippers or 6?
It was 6.
6, okay.
Yep.
Didn't they let?
Oh, I wonder who's on that team.
Didn't they let one get away in that Clippers series?
They did.
That they had it.
The Thunder series too.
Yeah, that's right.
Game 4, they lost. They lost all 3 game 4s of each series.
Who's on that Clippers team?
Harden.
Oh, really? Shocking. Anyway, we got to hit a break here soon. Give us some news. Can you please?
I'll read this text message real quick. Madden in Houston said, Oregon strength of schedule 67, RPI 39.
Okay. A&M, I don't know what the most current RPI is. They've been 1-2 pretty much all year long. So there you go.
I feel good. I'm like James Brown. I feel good.
I bet you they're listening back at the mothership.
I knew that they would.
Yeah. Well played, OB. Well played. Let's hit a break here on TexAgs Radio. Kate Nagley gave me a little message, but my phone won't pick up. Projected starter. Let me just read this because Kate Nagley's on top of it, right? Projected Friday starter, R.J. Gordon.
Wait, Friday? Do we know?
Oh, sorry. It should be Saturday.
Okay.
The first game starter, R.J. Gordon, 4.73 ERA. The second game starter, Grayson Grinsell, 3.82. Projected game 3 starter, Kevin Sider, who threw for those 130 pitches I told you about a moment ago, 4.52. Non-starting pitchers ERA. Are you ready?
Yes.
What do you think it is? Just take a guess. Just a gander.
5 point a gander like a duck.
Gander.
5.1.
Add a little bit to it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
5.5.
Keep adding.
6.
Keep adding.
Oh my goodness. 6.5.
Keep adding.
Oh my 7. I feel like I'm on The Price is Right.
A little bit more.
7.1.
A little bit
7.2.
7.24.
Okay.
I hope this doesn't come back to bite us.
Yeah, really.
They should throw it like
Don't want to get bitten by a duck.
All right, we'll hit a break here. More baseball, more football, more life when we come back. Right now, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during events held throughout the year. They've got awesome events. I'm talking about these marquee ones like Aggie Ring Day, all Aggie Hullabaloo gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities available to get your brand in front of those attendees. All events offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. Options include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition in social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. That is sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. When I think about Celine Dion, I think of Erica Sars. Agree?
Yeah, I never think about her.
No?
No, I don't. I don't say.
You've never had a dream about her?
Isn't she that skinny Canadian lady that?
I don't see weight.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, I mean, I can see where.
I mean,
she can sing well, but.
So is Eric's career like the Titanic, or is it just sad that he's leaving? Which one is it?
No, it's just sad that he's leaving.
Okay.
I think
he's not going to hit an iceberg.
I think Eric has a great future in front of him.
In running.
No.
In broadcast.
No, in
life. There you go. We love
He's
Eric.
like the kind of guy. Remember Butch Jones of Tennessee?
Of course.
Who said he wants 5 stars in life.
Eric's a
Eric's
five-star.
a 5-star in life.
Poor Eric has had to evolve as a social, because in the beginning, remember, social center, was only like reading text messages, and now they got like work to do. And Eric comes in every year like thinking he knows what the gig is, and then it changes on you, doesn't it, Eric?
Mm-hmm. It hits you in the face like life.
Like life.
5-star human, right there.
5-star. 5-star.
5-star runner.
Maybe Titanic.
Yeah. Did you ever make All-American?
No, really? I was
Really?
close.
They made a mistake then.
Yeah.
He would make the All-American.
Sorry, I
social
brought
center
that up
people.
there.
Yeah. Hey, I forget. What's the name of the show?
Go Hour.
Presented by who?
CC Creations.
And what studio are we in?
We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio.
Thank you. I forgot about that. And this entire presentation is?
Brought to you by the gem of a guy, David Gardner.
Thank you.
Jeweler.
So you were there last week when Trev Hours was talking. There was a couple little talking points that I wrote down just to get into today. Basically talking about how stadium improvements will have to kind of be on a case-by-case basis moving forward. Do you want me to read the quote, or do you want to kind of shed some light on what...
No, you read it.
He goes, I don't think there's two ways to look at it. You can say, well, gosh, maybe we shouldn't do facility enhancement. We're going to need those dollars. But if
Unless...
Exactly. But the facility enhancements that generate additional revenue to help you fill a gap that you need, well, that's
Baseball.
a different piece. So I think there's two different components to that. Things that don't generate revenue for you, does it look different? Probably I was always struck by back when I was at Nebraska in the Big Ten, we'd go to Indianapolis for our football media days, and I'd go in the locker room, and of course it was much better locker room than I had when I played for the Colts, but it was practical. It was rectangular with lockers, not nearly as nice as we have in the college space. So those types of things could change, certainly.
If money is suddenly an issue, and you actually got to, for the first time, be fiscally responsible, then yeah, there's some bells and whistles that are probably going to be, if not left off, at least delayed.
Yeah.
Now I think baseball, which in my opinion is the second most popular sport here, I can absolutely see the need to make improvements. And among those improvements is increasing seating, because I guarantee you they'll be able to sell those seats. And it may take a decade, but it'll pay for itself.
What is it? What do they say in Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come.
They will come. And you know what? There were people wanting to come to the games last week and just couldn't get tickets.
Yeah, and I agree with Schloss. I think those numbers were a little lower than the reality.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
There was 8.
I'm terrible as far as estimating crowds, right?
Yeah.
But I'll just say there was a crap load of people there.
It was a good amount.
In fact, that's the way you have a crap load, crap ton. That's how.
Right. Well, and by the way,
I don't need numbers.
Yesterday when we were having our content meeting, we were kind of discussing, like, and this is a known fact, but it's parking this weekend around campus and around. It's going to be ridiculous with baseball going on and the soccer match all going on the same day on Saturday.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people in town.
There are, and thank goodness that we have our TexAgs lot for the TexAgs employees and things like that.
Well, we're only charging $1,500 to park here, so non-employees.
Every time I go,
directly to OB or David Nuño's cash.
Yes, please.
I'm just kidding, guys.
Unless
you really want to.
When I go to the baseball games as a fan, I park here and walk on over.
I do too.
Yeah.
But I like that. The walk is short. It really is.
No, it's not a bad walk at all.
It's very
as
short.
long as you can get across Wellborn.
It's
across
dicey. It looks like you could die many times, but
you might have to dodge a train.
I get a train every time, every freaking time.
But once I get there, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is great. And leaving, I always get the train as well. I can never get it when I want. All right, when we come back here on TexAgs Radio, I don't know who thought of this brilliant segment. I don't even know if it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be fun. Somebody in the back thought of the idea, where were you? So we're going to go through a series of things that have happened in college sports. All right? And we're going to kind of talk about where you were when that happened. Career. You might have been at these events. In fact, I'm pretty sure you were probably at some of them.
Okay.
All right, so we'll talk about that, and we'll just give our perspective, and then people can
Old
text
people
in.
love stuff like this.
What about young people?
First of all, they probably don't know if they were there. You know, depending
Some
on
of
how
these kids.
some of them didn't
I don't even know if
exist
they were
yet.
born. Yeah,
right.
No, so we've got some of these are semi-current.
Are you going to come up and be a wise guy and say, "Oh, where were you when Babe Ruth called his shot?" He's going to be wise guy.
I'm not going to do that. I know you were in college. You hadn't started your career yet. 1927. I know that. I wouldn't do that to you, bro. I got your back. All right, we'll hit a break. Right now, QC Kinetics time. If you're not able to enjoy the summertime like the way you want to, which means doing stuff outdoors, that means like fishing, hiking, biking, whatever it may be, and because of all this joint pain, you're missing out, and it can be fixed pretty quickly, guys. You should reach out to our good friends there at QC Kinetics. You don't want those pains in your knees, your shoulders, your backs, or your hip. Don't suffer any longer. Non-surgical joint pain relief is here, and it's at QC Kinetics, and they're right here in the Brazos Valley. They are the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. We're talking about long-lasting joint pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. Their advanced treatments harness your body's ability to restore and repair that damaged tissue out there. So you can walk, you can run, you can hike, you can do it all again like when you were 15 years old. It is great. You start moving again, playing golf again. And they are under the leadership of orthopedic surgeon, former orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup, who is a true pioneer in that field right now. So their advanced protocols have enabled tens of thousands of patients to reclaim their mobility. Stop putting it off. Take action now. Live your best life once again. The phone number for QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That's 979-452-6000. How do you feel?
I feel good.
How good?
I feel so good that I thought you knew that I would.
What would you do?
Huh?
What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I might dance. Like
we
James
pay for
Brown.
that. We pay for that. TexAgs Radio.
I'm the hardest working man in
showbiz.
It's not really in show business, though.
No.
Old business.
Old business. Hey, this is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio, and it is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan. We're going to play a game of Where Were You? But let me read this text message here because JB in Canyon says, like a game of Frogger getting across Wellburn. No chance Eric knows the game Frogger, does he? Do you know it?
Of course I do.
How do you know?
I had that on my Game Boy Color when I was like 5 years old. Game Boy Color? You don't know what that is? Oh, come on.
I know Game Boy. I didn't know there was a version called Color.
You know the Game Boy Advance?
I know Game Boy. You know Game Boy, right?
Yeah. I was never into video games. But
ever? Really?
No.
Huh.
Centipede maybe when you had to go to the arcade, but
Atari, ColecoVision back in the day, Sega Genesis.
I did play Pong, the very first one.
Okay.
I've told you that story when my derelict father, when I was 8 years old, took me to a topless bar to play.
They let you in?
It was in the afternoon. I don't know. It's a bizarre story of my youth. It explains a lot, though, doesn't it?
I'm not gonna.
My father was he had some issues.
So let's play the game. Where Were You segment, and whoever thought of it, thank you for thinking of it. Somebody in the back did. Great job. Eric, why don't you give us a couple of scenarios, please?
Okay, so where were you for the 2007 Fiesta Bowl?
That was Oklahoma, Boise State.
Oh.
Jared Zabransky and Adrian Peterson played for Oklahoma at that point. And the famous Statue of Liberty play. You remember this to win it
Ian
right
Johnson,
there?
wasn't that the guy's name?
Didn't he propose to his girlfriend right after?
And and it was supposed to be a surprise, and the sideline person or somebody brought it up. Hey, aren't you going to propose now? Oh yeah, now I have to do it. And she knew it was coming.
Well, I'll tell you where I was, OB. It was I was working as a weekend sports anchor in Waco, Texas for KXXV News Channel 25. It was one of the few holidays that I actually had off. It was January 1st, right? I think it was New Year's Day, I believe. And my boss, Dennis Kinney, the news director, for some reason was eating dinner at our house. We were like, I was like being very nice to the boss. And he came over, it was Elizabeth and myself, and we had crawfish etouffee. How I remember this stuff, I don't know, because I forget everything, obviously. You've heard this show before. But on that particular day, and I remember thinking, they're going to win this game. They're going to find a way to win this game. That was going for 2, right? Were they going for 2 on that play?
Yeah, to win it. Yeah,
to win it.
Yeah, because the big play in that game was it wasn't really a hook and ladder. It was more of a slant and lateral.
Right, and that was to force overtime, correct?
Right, that was or to
tie the game.
Yeah. Anyway, just it made Chris Peterson.
That was his first year coaching, wasn't it?
I think it might have been.
I think it was, yeah. So where were you?
I don't know.
Austin American Statesman, 2007?
Was that game played in 2007?
It was the 6th season, 7.
Okay, then I was I would have been living in 2007 of that year. Yeah, I probably was still in Austin, but working for Rivals.
For Rivals, too.
Because I might have been, the reason how come I can't place it, I might have been out covering a different game somewhere else.
Right.
I have to remember what games were being played that weekend because I was still working for Rivals. So I might have been, I might have been in Phoenix. Was that the year? No, because that one was in Phoenix. So I might have been like in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I might have been, where I might have been? I might have been in New Orleans getting ready, if my memory serves, and it may not. Was that the same year that Utah beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl?
We'll have Eric fact check that. Somebody fact check it quickly, please. Let's do this. Let's go to the next one, shall we? Eric?
Yeah, so I actually remember this one vividly. Where were you when Kobe died?
Oh, gosh.
So a couple things. I had to work that day. When I heard that it probably happened, so working at a TV station, we get the chatter from the national outlets quickly, like, hey, it looks like Kobe Bryant was involved in a helicopter crash. Get to the office quickly. I was at a soccer game for the boys, 9 a.m. ish, early in the morning.
It was a Saturday, wasn't it?
It was a Saturday morning, yeah. It was. They were playing indoor soccer somewhere, and I had to rush to the office. And it became wall-to-wall coverage for everybody, right? And by the time I had gotten to the office, it was confirmed. And I think they went to the TV station. I mean, whenever it was reported, we were on immediately. We went to national coverage. And I remember they had me go around the city interviewing folks about Kobe, but I had to go get like people who may have had run-ins with Kobe, knew Kobe. So Robert Reed, who played for the Rockets, Bobby Joe Reed, he passed away just a few months back. I went and talked to him. Maurice Taylor, Mo Taylor, who played with Kobe for a season at the Lakers. He played most of his career with the Rockets and the Clippers, but I went to go talk to Mo. And I believe Dream, Hakeem Olajuwon. We got comments on the pad. And I just remember it like being surreal. Like, this didn't really happen, did it? And it did.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I was at home, and I just saw it on, social media and was like kind of just sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying I was necessarily a huge Kobe Bryant fan, but I could definitely respect the talent. And then when I've heard about his daughter and other people being involved, and you're like, oh my, just how tragic. But I was just at home.
By the way, Bama beat Utah in 2009, so not that same season.
I can't remember where I was, but I guarantee I was out covering a game somewhere. But you know what? And I might have been. Again, you see so many games. You know how it is. Could I have been in New Orleans for Cincinnati against Florida? I don't think so. Oh, I know where I was. That was 2006.
So that was January 1st, 2007. There was the Capital One Bowl between Wisconsin and Arkansas, Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma, Boise State, Nebraska, Auburn, and then Tennessee, Penn State. Were you at any of those?
I wasn't.
Yeah,
I wasn't. Now, did they have the national championship a week later in Phoenix between Florida and Ohio State? Because I was at that game. But see, it all runs together for me. But anyway, that doesn't matter. I'm sure I was at some place, but it
was in Phoenix.
So the next week. So I was probably preparing for that.
All right, let's go to the next one, which I switched the order. Let's go to this one that'll hit home here for Texas A&M.
Where were you for the 2012 Alabama game?
I was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, sitting next to Gabe Bach.
What an amazing day, huh?
It really was. And you know what? Here's when it's fourth. I'd written a column the week. I mean, this wasn't going out on a limb. I said, hey, if Johnny Manziel plays well in this game, he's going to win the Heisman. And he was great. And I was so frustrated because they let Alabama have a chance. Remember, they scored after Alabama made a run, and they scored on the touchdown pass to Malcolm Kennedy and almost had an interception. And, of course, they overruled it. And then, was it Amari Cooper? Somebody got way behind the defense with like 5 minutes to go, and you're like, what are you doing? The first thing you have to do, and I'm not going to say who the DB was, but he was prone to making those kind of mistakes. And, it turns out to be like a 70-yard touchdown and everything. Just make them use a lot of time, and you're going to win this game. And then boom. But and then with like a minute and a half to go, and they're on the 1 or 2 yard line, I'm thinking, well, there's still enough time to go down there and maybe get a field goal and then DeShazer Everett gets the interception, and you're like, oh, they're going to win this game.
They're going to win this freaking game. I've told the story before. I was working at ABC 13. I believe it was the 2:30 game on CBS, and I was preparing for my newscast. And I feel, this is the way I remember it at least, they won as I was walking on the set. So we had like a TV with it on as I'm like waiting to do my hit. And like,
so you like the weather girl up in Minneapolis or Iowa or wherever?
People did comment like you seemed extra giddy that day on the air. Because remember, like when I worked in that role, I had to be kind of like, Texas got their props and U of H got their props and A&M and Baylor was, So I remember vividly like that whole moment, like, oh my God, we're going to win. And I went going on the air and just being a babbling idiot where, if I remember correctly, my producer Joe Gleason, actually, I didn't see the highlights going into it because the game came down to the wire. So I saw it in the studio, but I didn't go over. There was no script. I just ad-libbed, and I remember being on set and just enjoying every second about it, and then just doing it on air live.
But there was more drama than there needed to be. Bertolette missing an extra point, missing a very makeable field goal, and you're like, come on, guys. And they still won. Johnny was amazing.
Johnny was amazing. Let's do one more Johnny, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, Eric.
Where were you for Johnny's Heisman?
Well,
best for last.
I know where he was, and I know where I wasn't.
I was in New York City. I'd been a Heisman voter since '94, but had never been to the Heisman ceremony. Hadn't been there since.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I was finishing off my first football season at TexAgs in New York, and it was just an amazing time. Now, Lucci would tell you about the time that weekend where Gabe fell down, was trying to jump on something. He fell down, and being typical TexAgs, no one saying, "Oh, are you okay, man?" I'm so.
Everybody laughing.
Everybody's laughing. And then when they came into my room, because I was tired, I went to sleep, and so. They came in later, and I was completely disoriented, like I am a lot of times when I sleep, and I got up wanting to fight people because I thought somebody was breaking in.
You want to fight people?
Yeah. I'm surprised Lucy hadn't already told you that story. Yeah, I got my Nuño on. But anyway,
I'm a changed man.
But I was there, and I remember Gabe asking a very poignant question to someone after the ceremony, and someone giving him a dismissive, just rude answer, and they're like, "What is that about?" Should be one. He asked, "Hey, what can this do for recruiting and things like that?" And someone just gave him some just rude, dismissive, and it was so wrong because the year before I had asked the same question to Art Browse, and he's, "Oh yeah, this could do this." And Gabe didn't know that I'd asked that question, but it was an idea. One coach was just saying, "Hey, yeah, this could do a lot for our program." Another one was just, for some reason, completely dismissive.
SB on the chat brings up Colin Klein is in that video, by the way, our offensive coordinator. That's
he was?
B, I remember this because I was the new guy at 2012. Greg Bailey and Aggie got to go to New York, and he brought Bob Slovak with him, who was the number 2 at the time at the state. So I had to watch it from the studio while those two got to go to New York City. So I was not able. And Bob's not an Aggie. Bob, I still hold this one against you. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to go.
At the Marriott Marquis in downtown.
Downtown, that's right.
Yeah,
all right,
in Times Square.
Let's hit a break. Hey, perfect.
By the way, can I throw this in right? So I'm sorry, but we're walking around in Times Square, and again, my first year there, and I hear somebody go, "Hey, that's Billy Lucci." I'm like, "Who the hell is this guy that I'm working for? That we're in New York, and people are yelling his name."
Dolores saw him?
Huh? No, it wasn't Dolores.
I'm
it was
just
somebody.
All right. By the way, this retro or going back in history is perfect for this segue for Heritage Films. Let's look back at your family life. Let's look back at your family business, your family ranch, your grandfather, your dad, whatever makes your family story so unique. Let Chance McClain tell that story. He is the best at doing it. 2-hour documentaries called Heritage Films. The company's Your Heritage Films. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. They do these awesome 2-hour documentaries that you can share after generation after generation. It's so cool to do it. I highly, highly recommend doing it. I've done it, and I know many Aggies have done it as well because Aggies like to tell their stories. You can also do a Yearflix, which is a 20-minute version. So you got the 2-hour movie, right? That's the Heritage Film. The Yearflix is a 20-minute Q&A reserved for the youngers in the family, right? So it can be a benchmark video for the 6th grader going into 7th grade, going into high school, going into Texas A&M, getting their Aggie ring, have yourself a 4 or 5-part series, and that is called the Yearflix 20-minute Q&A video done at the highest level. Again, the website, yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341.
You know who that is? Elvis.
That was a player.
He was. He really was.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Eric, I know you're getting some love on there for this being your last day. What else is out there? I see Cowtown's got something for us.
Cowtown, is that the one on the YouTube page or is that on the text message?
It's the one that says, happy to be in College Station for my daughter's new student conference.
Gotcha. Happy to be in Cowtown, happy to be in College Station for my daughter's new student conference. I can listen live.
Cowtown, what up?
Yeah, and Eric's from Cowtown.
That's right.
He said his parents live in Fort Worth. His dad's a
Did you actually grow up there, Eric?
I did. Yep, born and raised.
I was thinking about it, and I have Eric fourth on my list of A&M athletes to transfer from Oklahoma. Now I got to put Trevor Knight first.
Absolutely.
And then I think I have to go with Keith Ford.
Okay.
And then probably Brandon Williams.
Okay.
And then Eric Casares, who I'll put over Zarek Rollins.
It's close, though.
Did you guys know I pulled a reverse Kyler Murray?
Yes, you did. Yeah. Yeah, you did. You are about the same size, too.
Oh, gosh. I should have known that one was coming.
I think Kyler's taller.
Definitely heavier,
and
but
more handsome. And
Well, now, wait a minute. Eric's a good-looking dude.
I didn't say he wasn't. Look,
he's got that... But
Kyler's got
Latin
that NFL
look about him.
NFL money look.
Well,
to him.
yeah. If you're,
I think they're lying about Kyler's size. They said he's what 5. I think he's listed at 5'10", 5. He's not 5'11".
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the Elephant Man can drive up in a Porsche, and most women will say, he's kind of cute.
He's got something to
him.
him.
Something
He's
to
got
him.
a little bit. Eric, let's try to get another text then, please.
Yeah. So let's see. We got. I didn't want to read this one, but this is the first one I see that this is worth reading. He said, John Dutton said, good luck, Eric, and thanks for 3 years at TexAgs. Fun gig 'em.
John Dutton, the guy from Yellowstone.
Yeah, good guy. Quality people.
He's from Yellowstone?
Now, maybe Eric can go up there and be a cowboy.
Are you not familiar with John Dutton?
No, I'm actually not.
You never heard of the name John Dutton?
No, should I know that?
Well, I knew him as a Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, but the real John Dutton.
How long? What year was it? Was he the defensive tackle for the Cowboys?
But that's not what
that
we're
was way
talking about.
back. John Dutton from the TV show Yellowstone.
Oh,
great dad. One of the best dads ever.
Never seen it.
You never saw it.
Gosh, yeah. Well, there's a reason you're not going to be here tomorrow. All right, Obi, thank you, sir.
You bet.
All right, when we come back on TexAgs Radio, Juan Haris, John Harris, JB Moss a little bit later on the program. Eric's going to give us a little spotlight on the track program, and Bronny, Kendall Rogers, that and more. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're back on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the hotline. John Harris joining us here from footballtakeover.com and, of course, the Houston Texans sideline reporter. Johnny, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, David Nuño. How are you doing?
I'm well. Hey, so I wasn't planning on asking you about this, but my memory was so I remember something. And this is a good thing. This is something I want to talk about. So on the show, we just did a segment called Where Were You When? Okay? And I remember being with you. So some of the things that came up, the Fiesta Bowl, 2007 Fiesta Bowl, the day Kobe died, the 2012 Alabama game, the day Johnny got his Heisman. Those are some of the talking points. And it got me thinking about some other moments of Johnny's career. I remember being next to you at Sporting News Radio, September of 2012, when Florida took on Texas A&M to start A&M's SEC season, or their season that year. So from any of those, do you remember where you were when Johnny won the Heisman or the Alabama game?
Yeah, absolutely. First, that Florida A&M game, I remember being down on the sidelines, and I was talking to Bruce Feldman, who's now at The Athletic, and my buddy at the time was the Florida Gators sideline reporter, a guy named Brady Ackerman. And Brady and I have known each other for a long time, good friend of mine, and he was a sideline reporter for the Gators, had gone to Florida, played for Spurrier, coached for Spurrier. And they're both asking me about, hey, tell us about Manziel. And I'm like, listen, this is what I know. He can move around a little bit. You know, he's not the biggest guy, but they seem to like him. I think Florida's probably got to be concerned with some of the run game stuff and some of the stuff he does running the ball. But I said, I don't know. I mean, I haven't had eyes on him, but that's kind of what I know. And so they're like, all right, interesting. Okay, cool. So I'm standing there and I'm waiting. I was on the sidelines in the back corner. I don't know the directions, but in the back corner on the opposing sidelines where the Gators came out. And so A&M, is going through all the pregame chants and the yell leaders are doing their thing. And I look over and I see this female Gator cheerleader, and she has this look on her face as she's kind of looking in the crowd, and she's just looking around. And I mean, I just watch her head kind of go around and then spin back the other way, and she's looking around, and then she looks at her partner, her male partner, and I can see her mouth, "What the F is this?" Like they had never seen anything like that. So I start laughing. And then, of course, the Gators came out a little bit later. They all run out. And then, of course, Johnny puts on a show in that first half. And the one thing I remember Brady telling me after the game, he said Will Muschamp was as good a defensive mind for making adjustments. And so they had to adjust to Johnny. But my favorite Johnny one actually happened in 2010, David. It was Texas A&M and Oklahoma. For people that remember that game was as loud as anything I have ever heard in my life. Von Miller went off. A&M beats OU. I want to say that Swope had a long catch and run in that game, I think. But it was a great win by A&M. It was a tremendous win. And so I'm on the sidelines early in the game. I'd gone down with Travis Rogers and Sean Pendergast. We drive down. We meet our buddy Jim Ross. And then we also run into Lucci. So there's a picture floating around of me, Sean, Lucci, and JR. It's one of my favorite pictures because I had also lost a bunch of weight too, so I look good. So we're standing on the sidelines, and it's one of those recruiting weekends. And so it's a little bit later in the year, so guys are wearing their leather jackets and such. And so I'm on the sidelines, and I'm standing next to Billy, and I always love doing that because Billy will give me the straight up on everybody. And so look at the sidelines, and he kind of, Billy kind of hits me like, hey, and he points, and he says, that dude. He goes, he may not look like it, but that dude is going to be a supreme baller. And I was like, Manziel. I was like, Billy, he's tiny. Like, he's tiny compared to everybody else. He goes, no, trust me. He's from Kerrville. That dude can play. All right. So I kind of locked that away. And so I'm watching just the interactions on the sidelines. And David, it really kind of showed the magic of Johnny, because he literally is dwarfed by everybody on that sideline. I mean, there were some dudes standing around. They're all wearing their leather jackets. And I'm telling you, guys are walking up to him, giving him his props, dapping him up, bro hugging him. And I'm like, man, there must be something to like. I'm talking every dude. I was like, this is weird. This is odd. Like this little tiny guy is beloved. Like everybody is paying the respects. I'm like, man, maybe Lucci's got something. But I kind of forgot about it. But I just remembered Manziel, and of course, obviously Johnny Manziel. But it's just I remembered that name, and so in the summer of 2010, or the spring and summer of 2012, and they're thinking about, oh, that's the guy Billy told me about. And then that season pops off, and I'm like, oh man, Billy was absolutely right, which I'm sure everybody already knew that Billy was going to be right on it. But he pointed him out to me in 2010 and said, that's going to be our guy. And Billy's pointed out other guys in since, like, hey, keep an eye on this guy, keep an eye. He's never spoken about another player the way he spoke about Johnny. And that was 2 years before Johnny even took over. And so I always remembered that. But I was at those two games of John. Well, one where Johnny was on the sidelines, and then one obviously when he was playing. And you just don't forget. And that's why I feel like Aggies are so lucky. You just don't forget watching a college football player like that. You don't. It was such magic, and everything that he did, and obviously the win at Alabama, and you hear all these stories after the fact of him getting to that game against Alabama and everything that happened kind of before that and what he was able to do. But it's just such this crazy, wild ride that everybody went on watching him. But those are the two that I have that I remember distinctly. The one in 2010 against Oklahoma, and then the one against Florida being there for that game was, that environment. I remember when they played, David, I don't know if people remember this, but to open that game, and I don't remember what they called it, but they played a video on the board. And it was kind of the history of A&M football. And then it was kind of at the end, they showed the hit, Quentin Coriat, and then it was like, welcome to the SEC or something like that. It was incredible. I was standing out with tears in my eyes. I'm just clapping like the monkey toy. I was just clapping like, oh my God, I love this. And I'm not an Aggie. I have plenty of friends and family, and I love the Aggies dearly. And obviously I knew you and many others, but I was just like, that got me charged up. I was like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, there have been some pretty cool moments where you've been on site, especially for A&M. And I remember, I go back to my very first game I ever saw at Kyle Field, 1985, A&M against the University of Houston. And I had gone down there with my friends as airlines because their dad was coaching University of Houston. And I was on the visitor side. So I was near all the students in the core. And A&M fell behind early, but then came back and just roared back. And I'm like, why are they making out in the stands? Like, why doesn't anybody sit down? Like, why can't, and I was from Wisconsin, so I'm trying to, get adapted to all this. It's been pretty cool to be there for a lot of the events, and hopefully there'll be a lot more.
Johnny, I read something recently about quarterback situations in college football, and I didn't like where A&M was ranked, but regardless of that, I want you to give me, if you had different tiers in the SEC, a B, a C, a D, where would A&M's quarterback situation, which goes beyond Connor Wickman, right? That's Marcel Reed, Jalen Henderson, right? Like the whole group. Where would you put them? And then maybe who would be an A? Like in the SEC, what quarterback situation would be an A?
Well, I think immediately A is Georgia. You've got Carson Beck. I know Vandergrift transferred, so that's going to be interesting to watch at Kentucky, whether he steps up and takes that job. But Carson Beck, and why am I blanking on? Jaden Rashida just signed there, transferred there. His story is I don't know how you classify that story, but he's an incredible story. So he ends up at Georgia, maybe to stick it to Florida, which is interesting. I think it's got an interesting year, in the SEC because, how do people perceive Brady Cook at Missouri? I think Brady Cook is a really good quarterback. And I should say this way. I don't think he's a great quarterback yet. I think he's a great playmaker, but he's evolving into a pretty good quarterback. You just go around the league, people talk about Alabama situation. I like Jalen. I think Jalen is in that vein too. He's a playmaker, and he's gotten better throwing the ball. But Ty Simpson was supposed to be the future. So, okay, that's a pretty good 1-2 at Alabama. I told you this after the Texas Bowl. I was supremely impressed with Marcel Reed. Supremely impressed. Like, he walks in a game. I'm sure he got some reps during the week, but they're trying to get Jalen as many reps as they possibly can. First play, boom, he's out. Okay, young buck, you got to go in. And I thought he kept A&M in the game. So I think all three guys. Now, obviously, I think the success, the ceiling and floor are going to ride with the health and the progress of Connor. We know that. But if they got to go to Jalen or Marcel, I feel very confident. I almost feel more confident in Marcel than I feel in Jalen, but I think both of them give teams a lot of issues. I just loved watching Marcel that night. I was calling the game here for Sports Radio 610, and I really loved what Marcel gave to them. But I think in the SEC, I mean, I think it's hard to say because Connor ended up playing how many games? 4 last year. You know, you think about if he plays the rest of the year, that's 9 more games. That's probably what, 550, 600 snaps that he ends up missing out on. So you can't really put this group, I think, in tier A. I mean, I think at tier A is, you know, it's Carson Beck in Georgia. I think you put Jalen in there, Jalen Milroe at Alabama. I think you've got to do that. I think Brady Cook is kind of A-, B+, I think, for Missouri. And then I think Connor is probably in that next mix. I'm not sure what you ended up seeing, David, but, you know, I know people are probably going to want to throw Connor Wigman in there with Graham Mertz and what. No, I think Connor's much more talented as a quarterback, you know, than a guy like Graham Mertz and, you know, others in the SEC. But I don't think you can put them all the way in that tier yet. Now, does he have the talent to be able to do it? Absolutely. And like I said, I like the depth. I thought Jalen did great in the 2 games until he goes, you know, head over heels in the first play of the game against Oklahoma State. But Marcel Reed's got to go in a game, man. I feel absolutely confident. Now, I don't know how that translates into this offense, but, man, Marcel Reed kept him in that game. And Aggies know, man, there weren't a lot of offensive stars in that game, right? I mean, there were a handful, but they weren't fully loaded. So if you put Marcel Reed behind what I think is going to be a much better offensive line with the weapons that they have, and with the running game, you know, the deep triplets that you got there at the running game, I think Marcel Reed would do just fine. I think Jalen Henderson would do just fine. I think Connor Wigman takes him to a different level. I think there's a game or two difference with Wigman than there are the other two. I think if you had to go with Jalen or Marcel, I think 7-5, 8-4 in the possibility. I think with Connor Wigman, I think there's a good shot of going 10-2 as long as he can stay healthy and he makes the progress that we think that they're going to make. I'll tell you this, David. Here's one other thing to think about, and I thought about this. It's somewhat related and not. I was doing study on my Harris Top 50, what I call my nifty Harris Top 50. And so I got to the edge. I'm working on the edge position right now. So I'm trying to figure out where I slot Nick, where I slot Turner and Stewart. Like, I put Turner and Stewart in the interior defensive line category with the caveat that, hey, they could be inside-outside guys like Darius Robinson from Missouri. So I'm working on the edge category, and so I pull up the A&M Tennessee game or the A&M Tennessee game so I can watch James Pierce from Tennessee, right? As I'm watching that, and I'm just watching the A&M offense, David, I don't know that I need to tell you, and it was a cluster bleep.
Yep.
It was a nightmare. Running back goes the wrong way. Offensive linemen are blowing protections. Max is too slow getting the ball out. I mean, it was a nightmare watching that game, and yet they're still in it at the end. They've got a chance to go down. I mean, it had the lead for a long time, and they got a chance to go tie it late in the fourth quarter. David, it was a nightmare. Missed handoffs, low snaps. I mean, it was a conglomeration in the aggregate of so many just stupid mistakes. And I don't want to say that's all about coaching, but with all that we talked about last offseason with Jimbo and Petrino and all of that, it was no wonder that this offense was a just jumbled mess. So from a mental standpoint, this offense has to all be on the same page. They have to be much better coached, especially on the offensive line. And I think if they are, then I think Connor's got a really good shot of doing something big this year. But, man, that's got to change. And I saw that game. I watched that game. I don't know if I saw it all. I think it was one of the games we were on the road. But just going back and watching it play after play after play, to see one mistake almost every play, false start, bad snap, running back you're in the red zone and the running back goes the wrong way on an outside zone play. Like, what are we doing? I mean, that to me was kind of like red flares going off. Like, okay, this team's got a ton of talent, but my God, do they have to get things together? And I think they're going to do that with this coaching staff. Just all be on the same page, do things intelligently, and the talent will take you where you want to go, which is 10-2 and 11-1. If you're 10-2 and 11-1, you're going to be in the playoff at some point.
So, again, another thing I wasn't planning on asking you, but I'll just go there because you said 10-2, 11-1 could potentially happen if the offensive line and Connor all gel. SEC Mike yesterday he said, or a couple days ago, that he thinks A&M will finish better than Texas. Under that scenario, Johnny, that has to be the case, right? I mean, the defense you expect to be there. It really comes back to what I've been preaching for a few years. Everybody's been preaching, not just me. Offensive line. You keep Connor upright, you have a chance. Are you worried about the wide receiving group?
The depth of it, a little. I think in contrast, look at University of Texas. They lose Adonai Mitchell. They lose Xavier Worthy. And I know this will sound blasphemous, but they could be even better. Because you add Silas Bolden. You add in Matthew Golden. I mean, those dudes are electric receivers. So I don't know that Texas loses a whole lot now from the receiver standpoint. So you're just comparing that. But Texas has got to find a couple interior dudes to replace Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Here's the thing. Last year at this time, nobody really knew that Byron Murphy was going to be Byron Murphy. So, it could be Alfred Collins, guys stepping up like that. But I think Texas' strength is that, they still got great receivers. I love Jahdae Barron at nickel. I think defensive backs are pretty solid. I think in the end, A&M can end up having a really salty defense. I think they can be salty. I think their front guys can be really good. I mean, really, really good. With Skirton and Stewart Turner, I think they could be very, very good. DJ Hicks has to take another step because he's got mega talent. But I think with Texas, because they've been there, they have a quarterback that has done some things. I don't know that Quinn Ewers is a guy I totally trust at all, but he's been through the fire. He's a tough dude. And tell you the one thing Texas does have. Texas has running backs. Texas has a couple of dudes they can turn the ball a hand to and go, hey, go make it happen. Plus, I think Texas has some dudes on the offensive line, starting with Kelvin Banks over at left tackle. So that I think a lot of that line is coming back. So to me, they're pretty. I mean, where A&M may have some holes, Texas is stronger, and vice versa. And I think that's going to end up making for a really good. I could see that end of season game being one that determines whether one team ends up 11-1, one team ends up 10-2. I could see that game at the end of the year being one of those games where, hey, maybe the loser ends up 9-3 and the winner is 11-1, something like that. I could absolutely. Now, a lot of that comes back to health. And I think for A&M, it's going to be, all right, Mike Elko's taking over. How much of that kind of first-year coaching, bump up or adjustment period down, goes with being, a first-year head coach at A&M. Now, he's got a lot of advantages because he recruited some of these guys. He's been at A&M, kind of knows all that. So that's going to help. But Colin Klein, offensive coordinator, how's the offense adapt to that? Texas isn't going to have as many issues from that standpoint. They have continuity in their coordinators with Sark, all that. They've been through big games. So they're going to have a little bit of an advantage from that. But I see A&M and Texas going toe-to-toe with one another. That game, I think, is going to be, like I said, for 10-2, 9-3, or 11-1, 10-2. I think you're going to be right in that mix for sure.
Johnny, last thing for you. C.J. Stroud yesterday talking about the Texans having the best wide receiver core out there. Just your thoughts on that, how deadly they could be. I know John Mechie is showing some explosiveness. Again, just talk a little bit about that group and what that offense could look like from an NFL perspective.
David, it's the deepest wide receiver group I've ever seen here. Point blank, end of story. I mean, you could take the 7th, 8th guy. Mark Vandermeer and I, voice of the Texans, we were talking about this yesterday. Noah Brown, who had massive games last year for the Texans, re-signed with the Texans. You can make your argument he's receiver 6. And you may not even, 8. I mean, you don't even know where you're going to put Noah Brown, to be honest, as Mark chimes in over here, making sure I get my numbers right. But, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting group because you've got grizzled vets. You got guys that are on the rise. And then you've got some young bucks that are, trying to make their way. John Mechie's still trying to really become, John Mechie again. Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State, who was tremendous at Iowa State, did a great job for us last year in kind of gadget play sort of stuff. Screens, jet sweeps, push passes, things like that, where they could just get him the ball and let him go. There's so much depth at wide receiver. Here's the thing. We went out to OTAs yesterday, David. This offense is going to be legit. I mean, I just gave you some of them. That's just that receiver. At tight end, Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, and drafted Kate Stover from Ohio State, Joe Mix in the backfield. I mean, you got dudes all over this offense, right? They're all at practice yesterday, and this defense shut it down. Absolutely threw a blanket over this offense. Derek Stingley just shut everything down. You threw that Stingley, and he knocked it down or picked it off. He's ready to become that guy that he was back in 2019 at LSU. He is an absolute dude. So this defense has got an opportunity to be pretty good too. It just got me really excited to see this offense throughout OTAs has been really good, solid. CJ gets what he wants. And all of a sudden yesterday, man, that defense jumped all over this offense. And that was really, really good to see. I can't wait to see what Sting does. Kamari Lassiter from Georgia has really, as a rookie, has shown pretty well up front. So, SEC defensive backs, man, they know how to play. That's for sure.
All right, I got to go in 30 seconds, but deeper than the 92-93 Oilers, Haywood, Ernest Givens, Webster Slaughter, Gary Wellman. I know there was others, but those are the names that come to mind.
We asked our resident Oilers expert, John McClain, that, and he thinks this group is more talented. Now, the proof is in the pudding, but hopefully there's a lot of pudding here, as my son would say. Hopefully there's a lot of pudding here to eat. So, this is a talented group, man. I can't wait. Considering what we were 2 years ago, David, and what we are now, it's night and day difference. But, yeah, I'll put this receiver core up against anybody. Stephon Diggs, oh, man, he's fun to watch, dude. I can't wait for people to see him.
Johnny, thank you, brother.
Love you, man. See you, bud.
Love you, man. Forgot about Stephon Diggs, too. Like, we went the entire interview and just got to Stephon Diggs. All right, we'll hit a break. Open segment coming back, 979-693-1150. What are your thoughts on the quarterback room that Johnny just talked about, and also what kind of year they could have, all dependent on health, of course. Right now, Milliken Reserve time. You know where they are. If you're down on Welborn, if you're going from Kyle Field, you just look on your left-hand side as you're leaving town. If you're coming from Houston on 6, you look on your left-hand side as you're getting close to town. There's Milliken Reserve right there in between Navasota and College Station. Awesome place, farm-to-table community. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide-open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. 2,600 acres of open space and 30 miles of trails, and beautiful homes are out there as well. And these homes, let me tell you about these neighborhoods. They're awesome. You've got the Creek, homes on 10-plus acre wooded estates, all right? You've got the Hollow, homes in a private gated community out there. And you have the meadows that are responsive to their natural surroundings. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. Milliken Reserve is rooted in Texas soil. If it sounds like a place for you, you need to make sure you check it out. And you can just go enjoy nature when you're there. The hiking, the biking, the canoeing, the fishing, you name it. You can do it all out there. The website again, millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. All right, guys. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner Schuler's Rollo Insurance Studio. Preseason kickoff. I think we still have a few seats available. You better jump on it quickly. Go to texags.com/kickoff to get your tickets for the kickoff. But it's going to be great. We're going to honor Schloss and we'll honor Coach Elko. We'll honor Coach Buzz and all the coaches, right? Coach Weaver, you name it. They're all going to hopefully be in attendance, and it's a great event to kick off the new era of Aggie football and some cool stuff happening here at TexAgs. So make sure you go to texags.com/kickoff to get your tickets immediately. You don't want to miss out on what could be a very special season here. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. That's where we find Eric Casares on his last day at TexAgs. Eric, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so we know that Trisha Ford and that crew had a really great season. Unfortunately, it came to an end at the helm of Texas, and now Texas will be representing the SEC in the 2024 Women's College World Series final set against another SEC team, OU.
They're Big 12 still, buddy.
What's that?
They're still the Big 12.
Are they not moving to the SEC?
Yeah, but right now they're the Big 12.
Okay, but
let's get a ruling.
Okay,
Nick, they're Big 12, right? They're not SEC, right?
Yes, they are Big 12.
Okay,
do they play any SEC teams?
SEC until July 1st. I believe.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, goodness gracious.
I guess for all those softball fans, you know that there's 2 future SEC teams playing in the College World Series. How about that?
Go Oklahoma. That's all I got to say.
Facts. Go OU. Okay, let's move on. 2024 SEC win totals. Jesse Simpson put out a schedule projection for all the SEC teams. Coming in right now, the 2 highest over-unders will be Georgia and Texas sitting at 10.5. How do you feel about that, David?
So I have my questions on both. How is Georgia going to respond? Look, they are a well-oiled machine. They lose people every year. They won a national championship, lost, 14, 15 guys to the NFL draft, and came back and won the next year. And last year, I think they should have been one of the 4 playoff teams. That's where I stand on that. But they've lost some people, right? McConkley's gone. Obviously, Brock Bowers is gone. There's some questions there that I'm interested in seeing if Carson Beck can elevate his game. That being said, as I just pointed out, they're a well-oiled machine. As for Texas, I don't know how I feel about them because everybody tells you how good they're going to be. And they did very well last year in the Big 12, even though they had some close games. I don't hold that against them because how can I hold that against them? I think about it. It is certainly in the evaluation process. But how can I hold that against them if A&M was in the exact same position of all these close games that they could have won that they didn't win? That is life in big boy football. Games are going to come down to who executes at the highest level at the end. I got to give them their props for that last year, regardless of the schedule. Now, the schedule should be harder than it was in the Big 12, even though, as I've mentioned many times, they're getting a Michigan team that's got a new quarterback, a new coach, a new regime after their national championship. They get Georgia at home, of course. They get Vanderbilt. They get Mississippi State, as A&M does too. It is not your typical SEC season, in my opinion, as the program is rising. And what I fear is with the program rising and an easy schedule, that gives them another bump up in years to come. Hopefully what we see, and by the way, this is not just a Texas slight. I want teams to struggle except for A&M. So, on that particular day on November 16th, I hope Arkansas gives them a rude awakening to the SEC. But they're going to be really good. There's no doubt about it. I think they're more of a 9-10 win team. I get the 10.5. I certainly can understand it. They got some questions to answer. Johnny Harris talked about the wide receiver core. He thinks they could be better. But they do have some questions on the defensive line. Their offensive line is going to be good. So I would take the under as of right now, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised. And by the under, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised with 10 wins. I wouldn't be surprised with 9 wins.
Well, how about this? There's another 8 teams with total between 7.5 and 9.5 in the SEC. You tell me, David, is it too high, too low, or just right? Let's start with Alabama at 9.5. Is that too high, just right? What do you think?
Just right.
Just right?
Just right. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do better than that. But I think 9.5 is a good number for them.
Arkansas 4.5.
I got it.
It's slightly dropped their win total.
Yeah, so they lost KJ Jefferson, right? They lost Rocket Sanders, and there's a lame duck head coach there. I think they're better than 4.5 wins. Do we have their schedule up, Nick, I don't know if you have that made. If not, don't worry about it, but I can load it up. But to me, Arkansas is one of those, like, I know their non-conference games are not hard, as most of them aren't. So I'm looking at it right now. Arkansas Pine Bluff win. At Oklahoma State, probably a loss. Hosting UAB, not a guarantee. So I'm going to give them the win there, okay? That's 2 wins. At Auburn, I think they're going to lose that game. At Jerry World versus A&M, they lose that game. Tennessee, they lose that game. LSU, they lose that game. Mississippi State on the road, I'm just going to say they win that game, just because I'm nice. Ole Miss, they lose. Texas, they lose. La Tech, I'm going to say they win. So, yeah, I'd take 5. I'd take 5 wins for them.
Honestly, they might not be favored in any SEC series this year, looking at that schedule. I don't know if they're not going to be favored versus Auburn.
They got Bobby Petrino, though.
They're not going to be favored versus A&M. That A&M, you think A&M would be the closest on the spread?
Bro, don't be rude. We'll find out when the season starts. As of right now, I just told you I think they're going to win 4 or 5 games.
Fair enough.
I didn't mean that rudely, by the way. I'm just saying, like, as of right now, no, A&M's going to be favored by 6.5, 7.5. I don't know.
I think that's right, just because I think 5 and 7 is like perfect for them.
I don't know anything about gambling. Every time I talk about it, I make a mistake because I just don't do that. It's not the world I live in. But I would assume A&M is, if not a touchdown better, almost a touchdown better. All right. Well,
yeah, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'll throw in 2 at you at the same time. Okay. Auburn 7.5, Florida 4.5.
I'll take the over on Florida. I do. Yeah, I definitely take the over on Florida. And there's Florida's schedule. They're going to lose to Miami to start. They'll go beat Samford. They'll lose to A&M, I hope. At Mississippi State, that's a huge game for them. I'll give them that win. So that's 2 wins right there. Central Florida, I don't know. Put it this way. That A&M Mississippi State, those back-to-back games could determine how long Sam Pittman is there, because the rest of it, at Tennessee, Kentucky's going to be better. Georgia's obviously good. At Texas, that's a loss. LSU, Ole Miss, Florida. The back half of their schedule, they may not win a game. Now, if they start playing up to the talent that they have and they do well in the month of September, that could change the scenario. So I'm going to take the over on them. I think they're going to win 5. What was the other team?
Auburn 7.5. I think that's right. Just right. Honestly.
I think that is perfect for Auburn. I do. And look, Auburn may surprise us. They have an incredible wide receiver group, and their schedule isn't too bad to start. So I feel like before you get to that Oklahoma-Georgia game, you're feeling really good about yourself. If you split there, then you go on the road to Missouri and Kentucky.
That QB room was tough last year, too.
Yeah. Peyton Thorne does nothing for me. He can't be worse than he was last year against A&M. He cannot be. So, all right, we'll hit a break. We're going to come back with JB Moss. Right now, Caldwell Country Chevrolet time. They're on Highway 21 in Caldwell. They're online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. So you go there. You can go to the website, see the cars that they have, get kind of a feel, whet your appetite, if you will. See, they got this Tahoe. I love this car. Whatever you're looking for, right? You get a feel for the pricing and the vehicles that they have on the lot. By the way, they change it all the time, so make sure you check back. But then you go on the lot, and you're greeted by an awesome sales staff and good people out there, and the whole process is super simple and easy. And you talk to the folks there, and then you see the trade-in value you're going to get for your car. You test drive the car that you have. Then you have the car. Here's the happy story about it. You buy your car. You're so happy about it. You have some service stuff you need done. I need an oil change, guys. Boom, complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. Then you might see some Aggies there, Aggie athletes, I should say, because R.C. Slocum buys his cars there. Like, they're a place that Aggie Athletics loves to go. So you got all those reasons to go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Let's get back to some baseball talk here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. We go to the hotline. JB Moss is in the house. JB, good morning, buddy.
Nuño, how we doing? Thanks for having me on.
Couple things before we get into the particulars of the baseball team. First off, I enjoyed watching you and Bronny at the game. I think it was Friday and Saturday, just going back and forth between innings. Maybe it was just Saturday, but like your mind for baseball and Bronny's kind of see the same things, and it was cool to see you guys back and forth a little bit when you would put your head out of the, the window area there in the press box.
No, for sure. It's great having friendships with Bronny and with Richard. They're both baseball fanatics, and they definitely know their game. So, just going back and forth. We have a track man in the booth, so, when Bronny's sitting just there below us, he likes to know whether it's a strike or not. So, happy to help.
Yeah, and then how did you end up at a Rangers game with Brandon Leone, and you guys sat by each other, but it wasn't planned? Take me through that. How did that happen?
Yeah, so Aggie, gentleman by the name of Peter Warden, he used to work for Texas A&M basketball when I was here, and he's a big baseball guy. Actually worked for the Timberwolves, and then this year jumped over to his real passion in baseball. So Peter works for the Detroit Tigers, and the Detroit Tigers were in town playing our Rangers. And so Peter was kind enough to invite Brandon and I to the Ranger game, and we ended up sitting right next to each other. Actually, Nuño, Justin Lanham actually was there with Brandon Leone, so I got to meet Justin last night. So we had a little TexAgs reunion at Globe Field last night.
Oh, man, I'm jealous. Justin's my guy. Brandon's my guy. You're my guy. Let's talk baseball. We'll start maybe with Oregon, then we'll work our way back to what you saw there at the regional. What do you think about this matchup with the Pac-12 team here come to town that hasn't shown a lot of offense recently, but we know they can show it, and they definitely have a pitching staff?
Yeah, for sure. It's a West Coast team that we don't get to see a lot on TV, so you're kind of limited on your opinion of them before they arrive. But, just digging through their stat sheet, they're hitting 280 as a team. They do almost have 100 home runs, so they definitely have some pop in the lineup. Their pitching staff, at least on paper, is not as impressive as our Aggies, but they can still pitch it for sure. I mean, I think by all accounts, their strength is starting pitching, and if there's one thing that has given A&M kind of a bugaboo, it's been elite starting pitching. I don't think that the Oregon starters are anywhere as close to as elite as, say, a Hagen Smith or some of those arms that Tennessee ran out. But look, I mean, when you get this deep, Nuño, there's only 16 teams left. And so regardless of who you're playing, the other team is going to excel in at least one category. So I think A&M's up for the challenge.
To me, regardless, look, you got to be at your best, obviously, at this point. But the fact that A&M has taken on so many SEC, all the SEC teams minus Kentucky, basically, right? They've been prepared for this moment, yet they're not playing in an SEC team in the Super Regional. To me, that is, I don't want to call it a gift, but you got to beat them. But it sure feels better knowing that the level of competition that Oregon's played is not the same level of competition that A&M has played.
Well, you're spot on. And listen, when I was at Texas A&M, first year in the SEC was my first year in college, and something Rob Childress would tell us all the time is exactly what you're talking about. That's the whole point of going through this 30-game conference grind. If you're able to emerge out of those 30 games and make it to postseason, it should give you supreme confidence, because whether it's regional, super regional, or Omaha, there is nothing that you haven't seen before, given you've gone through the ultimate grind of 30 games of the SEC schedule. So, these guys have seen elite starting pitching. They've seen elite offenses. They've seen it all. So you're exactly right. When it comes to Oregon, with all due respect to Oregon, nothing that they present at Olsen Field at Blue Ball Park is going to be anything that A&M hasn't been through already this year.
How about the pitching we saw this past weekend, and starting pitching especially? Shane was incredible. Ryan Brauninger was incredible. Like and Ryan had to deal with some adversity from the first pitch.
Oh, we certainly did. And look, Slosh tells us all the time that it begins and ends with starting pitching. And it gives me a lot of confidence moving forward in A&M making it to Omaha. The fact that Ryan Brauninger, I mean, look, man, that atmosphere Saturday night was absolutely electric. I mean, the best that I have ever seen at Olsen Field. And for him to be able to handle that kind of environment against your rival, just gives me a lot of confidence in him in the Super Regional and even in Omaha, where the crowds are double the size and literally everything's on the line. So, I just can't say enough about Ryan Brauninger and what he's done all year long and filling up the strike zone and keeping his team in the ball game on Friday night. You have to have that in your Friday night ace because odds are you're going up against another first-round talent in the SEC. So Ryan has been great, and I thought Shane, man, what a competitor. I love Shane's demeanor on the mound. He's a come-and-get-you guy. And lots of energy, and the evolution of those two starters is absolutely huge for Texas A&M.
Talking to JB Miles here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Let's talk about that Texas game, too, because beyond the tenseness, like that to me, that was not an elimination game, but it certainly felt like that, right? Didn't it feel like not only is it game 2 of a regional, but the loser of that game was going to have an insurmountable task, and it came down to that last inning, or excuse me, the 11th.
You're exactly right again. And listen, it was so tense. I could not wait for that game to be over. I wanted A&M to win, and I wanted to get out of there. I think game 2 of a regional is pivotal. I think, look, you saw it in Texas. I mean, they poured their hearts out against A&M. And then to go to bed so late and have to get up and respond early, it's an ultimate challenge, and you have to be deep on the mound if you're going to lose game 2 and make your way to the regional championship. So, like you said, all chips were on the table. It felt like a national championship atmosphere. It was a nail biter for sure, and so happy that the Aggies were able to come out on top.
JB, are we making too much about the heat here? We looked at the weather in Oregon and Eugene, and I think it was like 85, 86 degrees right around the afternoon time. It'll be 96 roughly here. But it's a different level of heat and humidity, right? What kind of effect can that have, or will it have?
I don't think you're making too big a deal out of it. I mean, look, I say this all the time when we talk about the physical demands of these college kids. It's kind of twofold, Nuño. Like, listen, these kids are 18 to 22, and they're playing 56 college games. I mean, you move to professional baseball, you're playing 162 games, so you better get used to it. I'm not too worried about them being beat up, but look, in regards to the heat, I think there is something to be said for that. I mean, look, you know as well as I do, the temperature and then the humidity is completely different than it is in the Northwest. So I do expect the heat to play a factor. I'm actually glad that game 1 is during the day, and then day 2 being a night game. I mean, I think the first half of that game will still be a struggle. So I do look for the heat to play a factor in this weekend's matchup.
Talking to JB Miles here on TexAgs Radio. Gavin Grahovic, 22 home runs as a freshman, broke Jace's record, a record that Jace broke after, 35 years. So how good was it for Gavin to get that last one, because we've been waiting for a little bit?
Yeah, we certainly have been waiting for a little bit, but look, I was so happy for him. I think you could see the joy on his face. I think there was a picture they got that when he was turning around looking at Targash as he was rounding first base, and certainly very fired up. So happy for Gavin. And listen, I know that by all accounts, Jace is a great teammate, so I'm sure he's just as happy for Gavin. And just bigger picture, Nuño, I think whether it's Sorrell, Gavin, Jace, obviously Braden only being here a year, but what an incredible job the staff has done getting such talented players on campus. I think Sloss talks about the draft shortened and what that has done to the college baseball game, and it's just a really exciting time to follow Texas A&M baseball because we are certainly extremely talented, and I think that's only going to continue under Nolan Kane and their recruiting staff.
Is Evan Aschenbeck so good that we forget to talk about him sometimes? Like, you just know what you're going to get. You know he's going to be solid, and it's very rare that he has a mistake, and you can count on him for extended innings, short innings, you name it. Like, I feel like we sometimes take him for granted.
I think you're exactly right. Look, I don't want to take anything away from his special season this year. He has been absolutely incredible. And I told him in the post-game broadcast on Saturday after Texas that, look, man, not only is what you're doing very impressive, think about it, Nuño, he does it in high-leverage situations every single weekend. I mean, when is the last time you've seen Evan Aschenbeck in an 8-0 ball game, with no pressure on the line? I mean, it feels like every single time he comes in, it's high-leverage situations, and all he does is fill up the strike zone and get 3 outs. It's just extremely impressive. He's been so good. And another thing I'll add is, in my point about not taking anything away from his season, often you'll see a very talented player have a very special season. But it's extremely rare to see a talent have back-to-back special seasons. But that's when you know you're dealing with truly elite. And so I think sometimes we lose sight of how good Evan has been, not only this year but last year. And for my money, he's going to go down as certainly one of the best A&M relievers of all time.
Hey, we got to hit a break here, but I'll add Chris Cortez's growth and the ability for him to step up when needed. He has been so phenomenal for them this year.
He's been absolutely fantastic. And look, I think it's time that we really start giving Max Winter a lot of credit because, you go down the list, Nuño, whether it's Aschenbeck or Cortez or Prager, just the evolution of what he's done with the staff has been phenomenal. And let's go get him this weekend. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon, all right?
Bye-bye.
See you, man. JB Moss on the hotline. We'll hit a break here. Way past it. Sorry, Louie. Schulte Roofing Time, an award-winning roofing company that provides industrial, commercial, residential services to Belleville, Brenham, Bryan-College Station, Conroe, Montgomery, Navasota, San Antonio, and the Woodlands, and, of course, those surrounding counties out there. They're the home of the Bulletproof Roof Guarantee. I'll say it again. Schulte Roofing is the home of the Bulletproof Roof Guarantee, the industry's absolute best roofing system, roof installation, warranty, and 100% satisfaction guarantee or your money back. They've been around since 1994. Humble beginnings, but they're the best in the area. There's no doubt about it. That's why you see them all around town. Highway 6, Wellborn, all the way to Navasota and the Woodlands. You'll see them out there growing into a top 100 roofing company. Call them up, 1-800-4ROOF. That is 1-800-4ROOF, or visit them at schulteroofing.com. That's schulteroofing.com. Little Coldplay for you. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. So, look, I know we don't got a lot of soccer audience. I don't know. We don't have a big soccer audience. But is anybody going this weekend? I'd like to hear from you. Who's going to the Brazil-Mexico match after A&M wins, hopefully, the first game of the Super Regional over Oregon? Are people going to Kyle Field to watch Mexico-Brazil? Eric, you're not a soccer guy, right?
Not quite. But that would be cool to go to. I think that would be really awesome.
A lot of talent going to be at Kyle Field. It'll be fun. I won't be here for it, but I would have gone had I been around. All right. By the way, Conor McGregor, what's up with that fight? We're going to lose it?
Yeah, so the press conference got postponed on Monday. I think they were saying something was going on in Ireland. Not really sure. Don't know too much research on that. But
Michael Chandler went back to Nashville, so he's not traveling there. He was supposed to be there. He's supposed to be in Dublin.
And one thing is interesting. If you guys are MMA fans, if you followed them on YouTube, they always post free fights on YouTube of like the fighter coming up to promote the fighter. They took all the free fights from Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler that they already posted down. There's no update on Dana White and Conor since that press conference got postponed. And Michael Chandler's been posting some weird like help stuff on Instagram, just like staying positive, but like no update on what's going to happen. So I hope the fight still happens.
I don't know. I know that Shale thinks it's still going to happen. We'll see. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with the recruiting country, Ryan Brauninger, and his thoughts next on TexAgs Radio. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is now time for Recruiting Country, brought to you by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the BCS, the original 24-hour ER in South-College Station on William D. Fitch, and the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest. You can find them online at caprockhealthsystem.com. And with that, we have Ryan Brauninger here in studio. Busy time for you, buddy. You've got recruiting. You've got baseball, like Aggie baseball. You've got 12. Like, you're just all over the place.
Yeah, it's been a really busy couple of weeks. But, again, I'm not complaining. That's what I signed up for. It's just about trying to be as efficient as I can with my time. So when I get off the air here, I've got a recruiting Q&A questions to go answer, and then I've got to write lineups for – I've got 4 games over the next 2 days up in Franklin. So, just going from back and forth from one to the other, been trying to be as efficient as possible.
Well, let's get into it. So I know Saturday, it was the day that you were at the camp for all day. Then you're at the baseball game all day. So how did Coach Elko's first camp go?
Yeah, I thought it was very well run, very efficient, very organized, just like everything else that we've seen him do. It is different than the Jimbo camps, and we had written articles about it, and that was one of the intriguing things that we were looking forward to this summer. It's obviously not as big of a deal as like the official visitors, which start this week, or even whatever the end of the summer. I think it's going to be a pool party, whatever that looks like. Those are all massive events in the recruiting calendar, but the camps are still important, and I think that there is still a push by this staff to get the best players that they can possible to camp. Now, what my perception is, and it's just one camp, so this may change over the course of the next couple of weeks, is that they were looking primarily at 2026s that they had on their board, right? There was a 2025 safety in from White House, Jarius Sims, who has gotten like real buzz about him as an overall athlete. He's got a decent offer list, but there's a lot of the power programs in the region that are super interested in this kid. He was at camp. There were some really talented 2025s, but for the most part, the kids and prospects that caught our attention were underclassmen. So, again, I'm not saying that's going to be a theme for all of these, but maybe it was just for that first one. But that was my takeaways in terms of prospects that made it in was there were a couple of 2025s that the Aggies clearly had on their radar and they wanted to see in person. Mm-hmm. But there were more 2026s and 2027s who either already held offers from Texas A&M or were some of like the most offered players in the state that the Aggie coaching staff wanted to get their eyes on as early as they could this summer. And then you have to start looking. So once the players check in and we get an idea of who's there, then you start wondering, okay, what's the structure of this thing going to be? How's it going to look? And for those of you that don't know, Jimbo's camps were notorious for being massive in numbers. And he would do overnight. So you have overnight campers and day campers camping together. And so some of those individual sessions, the numbers would balloon. It was like crazy number of kids. And to their credit, I thought they did a pretty good job of not having many kids like sit around and wait. Like the lines weren't too long to get reps. For this first camp with Elko, the numbers were not nearly as high, and it was only a day camp. Like he's not doing overnight camps. So they get all checked in. The first thing they do is they get measurements. So height, weight, wingspan. They do a vertical jump test, just kind of some baseline stuff so that they can have some data on them. And then they go into the stretch, and then Jimbo's camps were like fourth quarter drills were the first thing they did. So it was a ton of like running conditioning style stuff. And there was some pros and cons to that. What I didn't like about it is that a lot of these kids are either, they started their summer strength and conditioning camps at their own high school, like their mandatory, not mandatory workouts. And so they were coming to Texas A&M. Some of them were getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do their own strength and conditioning camps at their high school, and then coming to Texas A&M later in that day to go camp here. Well, by the time they do their strength and conditioning camps at school and then come to A&M, and the first thing that they do is those fourth quarter drills for 30 minutes, for 35 minutes, they're sapped.
Yeah.
And so how much of a real evaluation are you going to get on the best version of the player? Now, the good part is like, okay, we're going to see how this kid, how does he respond to
being tired and
is there some mental fortitude there to work through it? But there were more kids, in my opinion, that got hurt by that, and their evaluations got hurt because they were just like, they were sopping wet with sweat by the time the individual football stuff started. So what Elko and them did, and well, let me go back. Jimbo would have guys run the 40 at the end of the day and do like their 5-10-5 shuttle at the end of the day. What Elko and them have done is once the kids get stretched, they get tested. So they get stretched out, they get limbered up, and then they go into their 5-10-5 shuttle. They go into their L drill. They go into their 40. So they're doing it when they're fresh. So it seems like to me is that they want the real numbers or as close to the real numbers as they can get on all these kids. After all that's done, they go into what I wouldn't call fourth quarter drills. I'd call it like movement drills.
Okay.
So either running through bags. There was a drill where they had like a star shape of cones, and the kid would start in the middle, and a coach would tell him which dot to run to, and he'd run back to the center. So they're just evaluating movement patterns. And then after all those are done, they go into football-specific training and then one-on-ones to end it. Skill guys, running backs and tight ends against linebackers, wide receivers against DBs, O-line, D-line. So it was a very different structure. It was very well structured. But it was one of the more intriguing things for me to see under Coach Elko was how they were going to set up these camps and how they were going to run in terms of what they were looking for out of the kids and just the order of the operation. So I think we got a lot of good detail out of that first camp just from how these things are going to look going forward.
Did anybody jump out at you, big-time performers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Lamar Brown's a 2026 like O-line, D-line, legitimately O-line, D-line. He's from Baton Rouge University Lab. He might be the best offensive and defensive lineman prospect in the country, regardless of class right now. This kid is different level. I mean, you just right now, and he's still, he's going into his junior season, so it's hard to make definitive evals about a kid that's that young. But I haven't seen many on my list that can move like that. Like he worked out at defensive line. And then they had him do a few pass sets at offensive line, and it's like that's one of the best young pass sets I've ever seen. So he's going to be nationally recruited. Obviously, LSU is going to be a huge hurdle to clear there with him being right there in Baton Rouge. But I was blown away. It's the first time I've seen the kid. I saw him going into his sophomore year at a camp in Houston he drove over to, and you could see all the tools were there, but just one more year of the added strength that kids get and the added mobility that kids get as they start to understand and be able to move within their own body. He is incredible. Like lay down 5-star, as close to 100 on your rating system as you can get.
How did it go with the guys that got to go to the baseball game? I'm sure that was cool for some of the recruits.
And that's something that they've done a lot. And I was talking with some of the coaches over there. I was talking to Tony Girardetti, and he was like, man, I'm glad camp's getting started. He said, but once this thing's over, like we're all hightailing it over to Bluebell. And it's been something that they've added to their recruiting weekends in the spring, which was non-existent before. And obviously it's a compliment to what the ballpark has turned into this year. But I think it's really savvy by the coaching staff. Like you can talk all you want about the 12th man, and when you get a new crop of kids that maybe have never been to Kyle Field for a football game, well, how can we show them that we're not like just give them a little bit of an example? Well, early in January, we can bring them to Reed Arena, and they did that a bunch.
Right.
And then as the spring goes on, we can bring them to Bluebell Park for these big series that A&M is playing and give them just a little bit of a taste of what Kyle Field would be like on a much smaller scale. And they did it again this weekend, and the returns were outstanding. And I do want to say this too. Lamar Brown wasn't the only standout at that camp. And I think I didn't want to just gloss over that. I wanted to talk a little bit more about they offered a kid out of South Springs High School named Paris Melvin. He's a 2026 do-it-all athlete. Now, he worked out defensive back, but their head coach there, Coach Fagans, he was at Fort Bend Marshall when Devon Achane was there. After A&M offered him, he sent me a message saying, love that A&M did this. This is the best player I've had since Devon. That's saying something.
Heck yeah.
Right? And I think he is legitimately a two-way player like a Terry Bussey, where he could impact the game at a high level on either side. He could also impact it in the return game. Like I love everything about Paris Melvin. And South Springs had kind of an historical season for them in their program. Coach Fagans has got that thing going in the right direction. But I really liked seeing Paris Melvin move around. There were some young tight ends in the class of 27 that I liked. Evan Goodwin is an offensive lineman out of Pulaski, Arkansas. He was really, really and like impressive physically. When you go up and talk to him, he's a class of 26. You go up and talk to him and shake his hand, like everything about him is big, and he was super nimble and athletic, had great feet. They had an offensive lineman from Basha, Arizona named Jake Hildebrand. He picked up an offer earlier this spring. He came back for camp. Looks like $1 million for a 2027 tackle prospect, and great feet, good mobility. And another thing about the camps is this is our first time to really see those coaches coach at length. Whenever y'all were allowed access to practice in the spring, it's short, right? And I've got no issue with that. But for camp, we can be out there the whole time.
So you get to see the real coaching.
So and you get to see, we hear a lot about the energy of Trooper Taylor. Then you get to see it for over the course of a couple hours. And Sean Spencer, and Sean Spencer, the way he coaches, it's not the exact same, but it reminds me a little bit of Terry Price.
Yeah.
High energy, loud. The kids really enjoy him.
Likable personality.
Likable dude, yeah. And I was interested in watching guys like Jordan Peterson, who played at A&M, and Jordan's a great dude. Tony Girardetti, we'd seen him a lot at A&M practices, but now he's in a full-time coaching role. Like, how does he interact not only with his current roster, but the kids he's recruiting? And so those are all good data points for us that are in the analysis business and getting a better understanding of when a kid says, I love the way Brian Cushing teaches Brian Cushing.
Right. I was going to say, Brian joined the staff?
Adam Cushing.
Yeah.
I love the way Adam Cushing teaches the game at offensive line. So I'm sitting there, and the last thing that I filmed was off the offensive line skill training with Coach Cushing. And it's extremely detailed. If you've been a long-time A&M fan, it's way more closer to Jim Turner without the loud yelling. And, Jim Turner was laying on the ground trying to get guys to step 6 inches back, not 5 inches back.
Right.
It's not that, but it is very detail-oriented. And to me,
kind of a different feel.
I don't look. I hear people talk about, for instance, baseball, and they say stuff, and I'm going, that's not right. So the legit possibility that what I'm about to say about offensive line play is the same way that I feel about when people talk about baseball. I feel like watching him do his drills, like nothing has come off the top. These aren't made up off the top of his head right before the drill started. These seem like they have
thought out.
Yeah, and have application to not only teach in a camp setting, but application obviously to a game setting. And I think it also he's put together a round of drills that would best highlight the attributes that he's looking for in a player. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So we're doing these drills. I'm going to teach you the drill. And as you start getting more comfortable in the drill, then I will be able to make a really good evaluation about your lateral ability on a pass set, or how good are you at sinking your hips in the run game. Like, those are two things that I think offensive line coaches would value, and I think the drills that I saw Coach Cushing doing would lend themselves to giving a good example of those type of things.
And the official visits start back up this week, right?
Yeah, and I think Jason's going to have that list out probably tomorrow. It's less of a guesswork now because there's so many kids that put out that they're coming. But, you could see a surprise or two on there, and I won't spoil the entirety of the list. Jonah Williams, there was some back and forth about he may be rescheduling, but last we've heard he is coming to College Station this weekend. That's a massive visitor. There are a few more. I'll let Jason put it out. We want to kind of make sure that our premium content is enhanced and for the folks that pay us for that information. So we'll have that list out probably tomorrow. But there was some talk earlier this week that Jonah Williams was now in flux about coming this weekend, and it seems like based off the intel we got yesterday that he's back locked into coming.
Good. Linebacker recruiting. A couple names out there that they're hot and heavy after.
Yeah, Mason Posa and Noah McHale are the two main ones. Mason Posa is a linebacker from La Cueva High School in Albuquerque, and then Noah McHale is out in California. I'll start with Mason. Mason had gotten this thing kind of whittled down to some programs across the country, Texas A&M being one of them. I think if you made me pick based off the information that we've gotten this week, I actually think he's leaning kind of heavily toward Wisconsin.
Okay.
And that's not that was a kid that they thought they could get. Wisconsin has done a great job of recruiting him. And I think he's got a wrestling background. That's kind of wrestling country up there. I'm not saying that he's going to do it in college, but maybe they were able to draw on that a little bit more. And he sat down here in this studio, and I talked to him and his family. Great people. And I think he would be beneficial to whatever locker room that he's going to walk into. And he's obviously a really good player. But A&M's got work to do on that front. I think Wisconsin is the clear-cut leader there. For Noah McHale, he's got his list down to the final three. It's A&M, Oregon, and USC. And I think it's going to come down to A&M and Oregon. I would give the Aggies an advantage right now. I don't think their advantage is as clear-cut for McHale as maybe Wisconsin's is for Posa.
Okay. All right, more of that. If you have any questions for Bronny, you can do it by texting in the show, 979-693-1150, 979-693-1150. You can put it on the YouTube page as well or on TexAgs chat. Right now, Father's Day is coming up, guys. If you want to make your dad a very happy guy, you need to come down to Hush and Whisper and do the entire experience because it is a fun experience. A tour, have fun experience together. Now through June the 15th, every bottle purchase get a polo for half off. That's right. So for every bottle purchase, you'll get a polo, and they sell some cool stuff there for half off. Hush and Whisper is an innovative distillery cocktail lounge founded to defy convention and distill true grain-to-glass spirits. They're located in the Verisco building in downtown Bryan. They've got Hush and Whisper spirits, milled, fermented, distilled, and bottled right here in Bryan, Texas. White whiskey, 70% corn, 16% wheat, 14% malted barley. They source only the finest ingredients and are committed to the highest quality of production there at Hush and Whisper. Curated for authenticity, distilled with a purpose out there. It's a place where you can enjoy a cocktail crafted with premium local spirits. But more than that, Hush and Whisper exists to inspire moments of discovery. So here's the thing. You can reserve a tour. You can reserve a tour and a tasting, or just a tasting. You can book an event for a meeting, celebrations, team building. Come in for a cocktail or a mocktail, buy a bottle and experience it at home. Gin and vodka, white whiskey bottles for sale. They're open Thursday and Friday, 2 to 11. Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. For those coming in this weekend after the baseball and the soccer, go to Hush and Whisper, 219 North Main Street. Remember, it is now through June the 15th. For every bottle purchase, get a polo for half off. Check out the website, hushandwhisper.com. That's hushandwhisper.com. Cheerio. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. What? You didn't like that, Cheerio?
I don't make commentary. I'm not mean to people on the air.
Sometimes you are.
No, I'm not.
Sometimes. Recruiting Country brought to you by Caprock Health System. So we got a text from Tyler.
Somebody might text you about Cheerio.
But it'll be like an hour later.
He's always on tape delay.
He's on delay. And I'll be like, he sent me a text yesterday like, wait, what? Oh, that was from the first hour.
Yeah.
And he was right, by the way. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Eric, you got a question for Bronathan.
Yep. Tyler and Tomble said, does A&M have any interest in the 2026 QB Legend Bay? If not, what QBs are being targeted for 2026?
I think they're still very open in 2026. Legend's a kid that's obviously on the radar for for A&M. But, yeah, I don't know that they've narrowed that list down. They don't need to right now. I think the bigger thing they're looking at in QB recruiting is making sure Hassan Longstreet is happy and content and he doesn't start looking around elsewhere, because that's a kid that's going to keep getting recruited across the country.
Well, yeah, I've noticed a lot of that chatter out there. Has he like hinted anything? Or
I don't want to put everything out. No, I don't think they're in a spot right now to lose him. But he could show up on some campuses this summer and people still give him recruiting pitches. So I think they're trying to fight that.
Taz Williams, he's going to be deciding real soon.
Yeah, I think it was July. Man, I'm telling you what, all these dates run together. I'm sure Jason will text me and tell me the exact date.
It's in July. Probably.
Yeah. He and Zion Williams both have decision dates coming up in July. Zion is a Lufkin kid, plays defensive tackle. And, Taz, I would say right now that both Taz and Zion would probably be leaning elsewhere. Probably. But I still feel good about A&M's wide receiver recruiting, even though they don't have one in the boat yet. I still think there's a pathway for them to close on some of their top targets. And I also think that whatever the perceived big board is by the fan base or by our subscribers or whatever at receiver is going to, it may be a little bit different now at the start of the summer than it was at the start of the spring. So there's some guys, like I think Tanook Hines out of Spring Decaney has kind of quietly climbed that ladder on their wide receiver big board because of the track times he produced this spring. I think that was eye-opening for a lot of college coaches in the region, including the ones at A&M. And obviously he's teammates with Nick Townsend, who remains one of their big targets offensively in this class. So, a lot of folks are, as usual, it's June, and they're ready to pull their hair out about one element of the recruiting in June, when player and roster and talent acquisition goes now all the way through when?
Now. I mean,
like it never stops.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah, so there's no sense in panicking. I know that everybody would have liked to have seen them add another wide receiver through the portal in the spring. They weren't able to do that, but that shouldn't be any kind of commentary on the current class, and it doesn't mean you should start pulling your hair out about wide receiver recruiting in June. I think that's crazy.
Brennan in the back had a good question. Anything new with Andrew Marsh? Has there been any talks with him?
I have to check with Andrew. He has been kind of and he's going to keep navigating the country and going on visits. One of the things that I was looking at with Andrew is, like, obviously an incredibly talented kid and a really good receiver, and a very, like, the best descriptor I can have for Andrew is reliable. And I'm talking about him on and off the field. On the field, like, if you throw the ball in his area, he's going to catch it.
Yep.
Now, what I would like to see Andrew, maybe this is something he's worked on, is like adding one more piece to his game in terms of his explosiveness and separation ability. Like, he is contested catches. There may not be a better receiver in Greater Houston than Andrew Marsh. And I think a lot of folks are just looking at, okay, what does the breakaway ability look like? Maybe long speed down the field. But he is a very well-rounded receiver. He would be put in the pot of all of those guys that I think are getting heavily evaluated in terms of how they're progressing by the A&M staff. Tanook Hines being one of those as well.
All right, let's go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know we got something new for Bronny.
Yep, 254, said, Ryan, how would the information from our AD concerning remodeling of facilities affect our coaches' commitment to improving the program? He's talking about baseball, I think.
Well, I don't understand the question.
The buildings across the street, everything, the facilities are fantastic, but I think he's saying how that'll affect long-term recruiting because there's going to be a.
Is it recruiting? The question said, like, how is it going to affect the coaching staff?
Is it?
Yeah, he said facilities affect our coaches' commitment to improving the program.
Oh well,
I don't think that they have a coach on any of the staffs for any, at least the major sports. I don't know the like you'll know track better, Eric, but I don't think that there's a coach over there that's not committed to making the programs as good as they possibly can be. I think that right now, look across the athletic department, and you have to give Ross Bjork some credit. Like I like where a lot of the coaches are at, and I like a lot of the coaches across A&M athletics. Trisha Ford has been awesome. I'm a big fan of Jamie Morrison. Obviously, the golf coaches, Jared Chadwell has been incredible, and so yeah, I think they're all like. I think the more thing that maybe everybody's wondering about is what does the new age of college athletics look like whenever every university is going to have to take on $20 to $21 million of outgoing money with no incoming money to combat it. Like how do they do that? And I think that's the next step. But in terms of how the coaches are viewing their programs and their pathway forward, I think what facility other than Bluebell Park, I think Reed Arena could maybe use a facelift, but it doesn't seem like that's on the agenda right now. I mean, brand new indoor track. We're going to have a brand new baseball facility for them. I mean, renovated, but brand new, probably here in the next couple of years. Brand new Kyle Field, brand new player amenities over there. So
we're good.
Yeah. That was a confusing question to me.
All right. Before I let you go,
we got to talk baseball because I'm not going to be here the next 2 days.
Yeah. Well, are we going to do a segment a little bit on Friday or
maybe Friday morning? But it'll be on the phone from a ballpark.
So just let's get into it. Baseball wise, you've been doing some research on Oregon.
Yeah, watched their stuff last night. Again, there's like I think a misconception, and maybe I'm a perpetrator of this. Like the reason why people think that West Coast baseball is something different. This isn't a small baseball team. Like they don't play small ball. They don't have small players. This is a big athletic looking group of players. There are a bunch of Cali kids, a bunch of Oregon kids. And on the hoof to pass the eye test, they're going to do it. Like they're an athletic looking group. On the mound, some of the stuff that I've seen has been really impressive. I'll be interested to see how it plays against teams that are a team that's as physical as Texas A&M. The coaching staff will have way more analytics here, but from what I've been able to gather on Oregon, fastball command is good. I don't know, based off the top couple of starters that I've watched, I don't know if fastball life is good. I know they throw it where they want, based off what I've seen, but I don't know what the analytics of the stuff look like.
Sure.
Because when you're watching on the TV copy, and just so everybody out there knows this, when you're watching a game from behind the pitcher in the center field camera, it looks a bajillion times easier than it actually is. Like, that camera can definitely fool you. So when Chris Cortez is throwing sliders like he is, and it looks disgusting on the TV copy from behind the center field wall, you can only imagine what it looks like in the batter's box. Same deal with Hagen Smith or LeBaron Johnson, the splitter he had going. So I was able to look at a lot of the Oregon pitchers. They got a guy that comes out of their bullpen that throws really hard, like 96 to 100. They're not going to take much of a step back in terms of overall athleticism, power, strength to Texas A&M. They're not there, but it ain't far off.
Right.
And again, I go back and look at their schedule. There's not a real big blemish on their schedule. They have played close games with everybody. There wasn't one stretch of 5-6 games where you're going, oh, what is that? Like what happened there? The numbers may not overwhelm you. I think they're a top 40 staff in terms of team ERA. I think they're top 45 in the country in home runs. Their strength of schedule, I believe, was like 99 overall. So obviously the metrics are going to favor Texas A&M here.
They're good enough to beat you, though.
They are definitely good enough to beat you. And one thing that nobody has talked about yet, at least I haven't heard, do you know how they ended their season last year, Oregon?
They lost in the Super Regional, right?
At home to Oral Roberts in some crazy – it was a crazy 3-game series. I think both teams had big comebacks. I think actually Oregon may have won the first one on a crazy comeback. They win the opener, and then Oral Roberts won the last two. Nick may be able to look that up and fact check me on that. But they're going to come in here. I don't think the atmosphere, like, there's nothing for them to lose here, right? Like, they're the underdog. They're coming in as the 3 seed in their regional. Nobody thought they'd win that Santa Barbara regional. So they're going to come in here and play loose and relaxed because there's nothing, like, we're playing with house money here. Everybody expects A&M to win this thing. And I also think they're going to come in here with a little bit of, like, all right, loose and relaxed, but, like, don't forget how you felt last year when Oral Roberts was celebrating on your field.
Oral Roberts won the first game. Oregon won the first game 9-8. Oral Roberts wins 8-7, and they win the last game 11-6.
Yeah, so, like, that's what I said, the crazy back and forth series. So Oregon's been through it, and a lot of those guys that are on this roster were on that roster. Their first baseman's a big old dude, hit 18 home runs. They got a freshman shortstop that grew up playing with Gavin Grahovic. It's a really talented player. You're going to have to play well, man. I think there's some A&M fans that are looking at this and going, okay, like, A&M's clearly the better team. This won't be as, difficult as maybe the Super Regional a couple years ago against Louisville. And I'm not saying that this Oregon team is that Louisville team. That Louisville team was really, really good, really talented. But this Oregon team, because they have so much, there's so much quality in their starting pitching, they can be a problem. Don't kid yourself. They can absolutely be a problem.
Thank you, Brody.
Yep.
All right, FBS Appliance Time. Their team of experts is there to help you with the appliances that make your house a home. They carry all the top brands out there to make your life easier with appliances to fit any budget. They've been taking care of Texas since 1988, and FBS Appliance has trusted brands like Bosch with expert staff and trained installers to guide you through the purchase because they want to be your trusted appliance store out there. They've got a team of experts, and they want a commitment to customer satisfaction at the core of everything that they do. They've assembled a team of trained sales professionals who are experts in their field, and their services do not stop at sales. They offer expert installation carried out by skilled technicians who are factory trained. They understand the intricacies of installation, ensuring that the appliances are set correctly and operate smoothly out there. They have 8 showrooms all across the state of Texas. You can find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. That is factorybuilderstores.com. FBS Appliance, check it out. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the hotline, talk some more baseball with Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball, who was here for all the action this past weekend. Kendall, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm recouping, man. These last 2 weeks, it's like anxiety overload with all these crazy finishes and teams down to the last strike. You get the game Saturday night at A&M. You know, those two teams, I thought, you know, other than a couple of the errors, I thought both those two teams played really well in a rivalry game. So here we go, man. We got one more weekend to go, and then it's Omaha.
So you've seen some tense moments in college baseball. How tense was it taking your Aggie hat off and just kind of enjoying the baseball that it was there against Texas?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You know, people always ask me, like, hey, how do you cover, like, A&M in Texas and not have a rooting interest? And the thing is, like, you know, I know a lot of these kids. I know all these coaches. And, like, I don't like to see anybody lose a heartbreaker. But, you know, for those two teams to play that kind of game, like, we talked about it last week, right? Like, we knew that if Texas and A&M were going to play, that there is no shot with the way that Texas historically plays in the postseason that they were going to go in that game and at least not be ready against A&M. Now, A&M could, you know, blow them out by just playing a really good game and, you know, hitting a couple of home runs. But you just knew they were going to give A&M their best shot. And you also knew, I think, going into the weekend, that Texas basically had one bullet to play, and if that bullet didn't strike, they were done. And that's kind of how it played out. And so, you know, I give A&M a lot of credit. With Texas putting them on the ropes, LeBaron Johnson, you know, that was the best stuff I've seen from LeBaron all year long. Honestly, if he pitched like that all year long, Texas probably isn't on the road for a regional. He was sensational. And I think the other thing is I was really impressed with the way A&M handled it, because it's very, very easy when you're playing Texas or frankly, any team for that matter, but especially when you're playing your rival at home in a year where everybody expects you to get to Omaha and compete for a national championship, it would be really easy in those moments to just kind of melt down. And A&M didn't melt down. I mean, if anything, they got better as the game went on. You know, Ryan Brauninger, I thought he was a little rusty early, but Ryan Brauninger, his best innings were his last few innings. So I thought that was a really good gut check game for A&M. And, I mean, the way they responded against Louisiana is exactly how I thought they responded. I think beating Texas the way they did kind of lifted a little bit of a pressure off of them. And, I mean, I think they play really, really well this weekend, because at this point, you know, I don't think they have a pressure situation.
We're talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. One more thing on the Texas game, too. Isn't that what a rivalry is supposed to be like? When they say throw out the record books and yada, 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 yeah, A&M's at home, you know, top 3 team in the country, yeah. But that's the way rivalry games should go. Maybe not the lack of offense, if you will, but just how tense it was and how anybody could win it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, is, like, I mean, I get that people on both sides of the spectrum at Texas and Texas A&M are, you know, still mad at each other over how the Big 12 SEC thing unfolded. But there is not a person in the stands on Saturday who could go to that game and go, you know what? Yeah, I don't want this back anymore. You know, like that is what college sports is all about. And I don't care what, you know, we say over at A&M about, oh, LSU's a big rival and yada, yada, yada. That right there is what rivalry is all about. So I thought it was a cool moment, and for that game to end the way, or for A&M to win the game they did, with a ball essentially kind of bouncing off a glove and bouncing off a base. I mean, how about that? I mean, I could not believe that's how that game was won, but, you know, that's kind of how the postseason rolls sometimes.
Talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Radio. Let's talk a little bit about Aggie pitching beyond the starters, and my eyes are clearly on Evan Oschenbeck, obviously Chris Cortez, the gang. Just when you think about that part of it, because Prager's been solid. Obviously, Shane Sadeo's been solid, but those guys there to help them through.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with as somebody who looks at both the positive and negative, I'll start with the really quick negative. I was a little disappointed in the way Justin Lampkin threw. Mm-hmm. They put him in a situation with literally zero pressure. And honestly, the body language looked a little disinterested. So I think that's something they'll probably address going into the weekend. But on the positive side, how about Chris Cortez? Chris for $800,000 or $900,000 this summer. We really ought to send Max Weiner part of that signing bonus. What he's done to Chris this year is remarkable. It's funny. I was talking to Matt Daggs via text, and he was telling me that, like, dude, that's a big league reliever right now, and we've always kind of thought he had that kind of potential, but when you look at just his sheer stuff over the weekend, I mean, 98, 100, good vertical, break on his fastball. The slider was 89, 91. The changeup was 90. I mean, that's exceptional stuff. And so when you have a guy like that, and then you kind of, you go with him for, let's say, 2 or 3 innings, and then you come back with Evan, who's just going to, dump a ton of breaking balls in there on you, switch speeds with a breaking ball. I mean, it's just really tough. And so I thought it was important for those guys to throw. I did feel like, even though Evan came up clutch down the stretch, I did feel like there were some moments in the last couple of weeks of the season where teams could square him up a little bit. And I thought he was kind of back to his old self to some degree. So I feel pretty good about it, man. Sadeo, I thought threw pretty well for the most part. He's able to escape a couple of jams, but, I don't worry about him. And, now when you look at the A&M pitching staff, I thought where you could get A&M would be if you can get them to Monday of a regional. I think in a super regional format where everything's condensed, I feel very good about A&M's pitching staff.
So I try to differentiate when we talk baseball with our different guests, and one topic I haven't brought up in a bit is Caden Sorrell, the 2 homers over the weekend, his freshman campaign. Obviously, Gavin Grohovic's been incredible, but how about Caden Sorrell?
Yeah, I mean, he just continues to impress, right? I mean, he's a guy that, at the beginning of the season, I wasn't real sure how he'd factor into the equation for A&M, but, it started this year with just an exceptional defense. He gets really good breaks on the ball. He has a really good instincts, on the warning track, on the fence. But now he's starting to really just form into a really nice hitter. I like his, I'm a body language kind of mental type of person when it comes to players. And when you watch him at the plate, it is the same personality every single time, whether it's 4 for 4 or 0 for 4. And I think when you have that kind of mentality as a freshman, that's just ultra impressive to me. Obviously, he came up big for A&M over the weekend a couple of times. But, yeah, man, like what he's done this year is really impressive. And, frankly, there's a long way to go this season. But if you start to look ahead to next year with, Sorrell and the top, several pieces at the top of that order back, man, it gets potentially even more exciting for A&M.
Talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. So tell me about this matchup with Oregon. What is something A&M needs to be aware of or watch out for?
Well, I think the big thing with UO is they do have a little bit of power. Do not look at their power numbers because they're a club that play in arguably the worst kind of offensive-friendly environment possible. They're always playing in drizzle. They're always playing in 60-degree temperatures. And so I would warn people that, some of these teams like Oregon, when they get out of the Pacific Northwest, when they get off the West Coast and they go to places where it's warm and the ball flies a little bit, it's almost like they get giddy because they don't get to play in that very often. So they do have a little bit of power. Jacob Walsh is a really nice hitter for them. I think when you look at their pitching staff, they're not going to blow you away. R.J. Gordon and Grayson Grenzel are not guys that are going to blow you away. Gordon's going to be 89, 91. He's going to mix and match. He's going to locate. Grenzel, I really like. He's a freshman for them. And, I saw them earlier this year at Globe Life in Arlington. And, Grenzel, he'll get up to 90, 91 with his fastball, but his bread and butter, man, is attacking with those breaking balls. He does a really nice job of getting that slider/curveball down low in the zone. And when he does that, man, he's just really hard to square up. You don't get easy swings off of him. And so, on one hand, I really like Oregon's club. On the other, I just think A&M's a horrible matchup for Oregon. Oregon is not a team that is going, they may hit a couple of home runs, but they're not a team that is going to just go mano-a-mano with A&M in the power department. And I think especially in the Saturday game, when it's 1 o'clock, it's going to be windy, it's going to be hot. I think that's just an awful matchup for Oregon. So I actually like A&M in 2 games in this series. But, Oregon is a good club. I don't want to downplay them because they are a good club, but I just think they're overmatched.
Kendall, great stuff, man. Thanks so much for making time. Talk to you soon.
You got it, guys. Y'all be good. See you later this week.
Yep, Kendall Rogers, D1 Baseball here on TexAgs Radio. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with some track thoughts, guys, because Eric Casares' last show, we're going to focus on Eric and track and, of course, the track and field team in Eugene for the national championships. We'll get to some text messages. Right now, though, Rollo Insurance time, the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. The difference is real. It is a different feeling when you shop with Rollo. You let them do the shopping for you. because they want to find you the best insurance situation for your family needs, and whatever car situation you're in, they're going to find the best possible case for you all. That's what they do there at Rollo Insurance. They're right here in College Station. That's where their headquarters is. They are local. You'll see them all around town. You'll see them at Aggie sporting events. You can call them. They'll take care of you. They are fantastic at what they do. They can write any form of insurance to anybody in Texas. They've got several other offices out there, but in Texas alone, they got 53 offices, and as I've told you many times, their headquarters is on Highway 6 right here in College Station. The phone number for Rollo Insurance is easy, 888-44-ROLLO. That is 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. That is rolloinsurance.com. Time to end the day with Double Days. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's, who have been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house Delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. So typically on a Wednesday, we have Coach Pat Henry, and then interviews brought to you by the Brazos Running Company, your local Aggie-owned specialty running store. Save 10% in store when you mention the code TexAgs10. But he is obviously in Eugene for the national championships. And then we usually do a follow-up segment brought to you by Schulte Roofing, the award-winning roofing company that provides industrial, commercial, residential services to Belleville, Brenham, Bryan-College Station, Conroe, Montgomery, Navasota, and San Antonio. They're home of the bulletproof roof guarantee. So they're not here. We're going to give you another legend, a TexAgs legend. Eric Casares going to give us some thoughts on what's happening in Eugene. Eric, the timeline, it starts today, correct?
Yep, starts today. 4-day meet. Men's day 1 today. Women's day 1 tomorrow, Thursday, June 6th. Men's day 2, Friday, June 7th. And women's day 2, Saturday, June 8th. If you want to watch it, you can check it out on ESPN2. All 3 days. The last day is going to be on ESPN. Times for that, 7:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m., 9 p.m., and 5:30 p.m. That's all Eastern time. 25 athletes are going to be competing for A&M, 15 women, 10 men, 3 relay teams, 20 individuals, 18 different events, and Texas A&M shooting to win their first national championship on both men and women's side for the first time since they both three-peated back in 2009, 2010, 2011. So big weekend coming up for the Ags.
Eric, any updates on, there was a player that, was it Connor? Who
yeah,
was it?
Connor Schulman. So for those that don't know, he had an unfortunate situation. He fell down, but the dude next to him impeded with him, so it caused a tumble. He tried to get it protested. They denied it. They didn't let him rerun. That was the whole controversy there, was because normally when something like that happens in a championship meet, they let you have a rerun. They didn't let him have a rerun. Of course, Coach Henry got involved, tried to get it resolved. Thankfully, they were still able to bring him on the trip in hopes to letting him compete. But unfortunate news, I texted him this morning. He said he's only going to be able to compete if somebody scratches out.
Scratch out!
Scratch out, man. Let Connor compete.
Who's expected to win it this year? Florida's won back-to-back. Arkansas hasn't won in a while. I know they're really good.
Yeah, Arkansas. So the top 5 ranked teams, actually 4 out of the 5 are SEC teams. Arkansas's 1, Bama 2, Florida number 3, Texas A&M coming in at number 5. Texas A&M has also been in the top 5 consistently all year. The 5th is actually the lowest they've been all season. And Arkansas is actually projected to win. They're seeking their first outdoor national title since 2003. Runner-up finish last year behind Florida, leading 4x400 time in the country, 2:59.03, and they're SEC champions. And Coach Henry always talks about, SEC being the harder meet to win than the national championship. So,
and on the women's side, same cast of characters, right? You have Arkansas, who every year's phenomenal. And they have different. I feel like they're playing with different rules.
Yeah, and Arkansas on the women's side actually is definitely a heavy favorite to win because they are back-to-back indoor national champions, and this is their first time being ranked number 1 this season. They have 12 ranked top 10 spots and 3 national leading marks. They broke the collegiate record in the 4x4 at the West Prelims in 3:21.92. So, yeah, they're going to be the heavy favorites to win it on the women's side. Men's side, it's up in the air. I think it definitely can be us. I don't know. I don't see why not. I think we have 44 to 47 points in there. The last 3 years at the national championship, it's only taken about 54 points to win it. So I think we have a chance.
Eric, favorite moment at TexAgs?
Favorite moment at TexAgs? I think, dude, honestly, when Mark Henry came in and I met him, that was
the wrestler,
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge wrestling fan, huge UFC guy, combat sport guy.
You do realize those are 2 different things, right?
Of course.
One's an act and one's real.
Of course.
Okay,
of course.
Just making sure.
But yeah, no, Mark Henry coming in, watched him growing up, and yeah, so that was probably my favorite moment that like goes unnoticed, I think.
We'll do more on the rewind, all right? But Eric, great work here on TexAgs. Thanks so much for your time over the last 3 years, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Wednesday. Tomorrow on the program, Nick, it's Thursday. What do we typically have on a Thursday? We got Stephen McGee.
Yeah, you got McGee, maybe Coach Schloss.
Maybe Schloss, maybe Richard Zane, maybe some thoughts, all that and more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you guys mañana.